Calling the little place that I lived in a sleepy small town seems ironic right about now. It's not like any of us were going to sleep anytime soon, or ever again maybe. I've been awake for 72 hours now, so give me a little grace when it comes to keeping my story straight. The past few days in Hazelwood have been chaotic for everyone, and we're all running on fumes. The last morning, everything was normal with Saturday. I ran out to Wally's grocery to get a few things to throw on the grill that night. Figured that I would have a couple of friends over, a few drinks, set up the fire pit now that the weather was getting more crisp. Have a nice night. I barely got through the door when the truck started going through the streets. A pre-recorded message playing asking everybody to return to their homes for their own safety. An alert came through on my phone within seconds, echoing the sentiments. Emergency alert. Please stay indoors. Intense weather events imminent in your area. For your own safety, please remain inside with windows and doors closed. Weird, but okay. Maybe there was a storm system coming through, but why wouldn't it say that there would be a tornado watch or something? Everyone else was just as confused, milling back to their cars to head back home. I did the same, hopping in my crappy old hatchback and getting back home within minutes. After going inside, I sat up near the window for a few minutes, curious to see what might be going on. Well, the alert wasn't wrong. Clouds rolled in quick, massive, dark, and swirling ones. I could see purple lightning even discharging in some, with the occasional flash of green coming through. The rain that came with it brought a smell that I could pick up even from inside the house. Metallic, though with a hint of acidity that almost stung my nostrils. There was nobody out on the streets, not even animals running around. All in all, it came down pretty hard, but it only lasted maybe 20 minutes at most. The second alert followed not long after everything had stopped, this one making me a lot more nervous than the first. Emergency alert. Please remain indoors. Stay awake, do not fall asleep or allow any friends and loved ones to do the same. Please stay tuned for further updates. This one had me. I honestly thought that it was a hoax for a minute, like that time that somebody sent a fake nuke warning to everyone in Hawaii. The more I looked around outside though, the more I wondered. Everything was too still, especially for a Saturday morning. Not even the birds were chirping. Hell, even the crickets and frogs that normally would be throwing a rave after every shower didn't have anything to say. Just eerie quiet, not even a breeze to rustle the leaves. An ambulance cut the silence, tearing down the main street just a few dozen feet away, going further into town. They didn't usually go that fast down this part of the road, considering all the residential homes out here that they had to blow by. I walked out on my front porch, looking around to see what the hell might be going on. Strange weather, ain't it? A gruff voice shouted over to me. Across the road and to the left, old Mr. Hutch was sitting on his porch, rocking in that same old chair that he spent hours in. Yeah, weird stuff. Those alerts seem real to you? I asked. He looked at me, not understanding, so I held up my phone to him. The emergency alerts that came through, did you get them? Oh, I ain't got one of those damn things, just the landline. I don't need all that Facebook and Twitter bullshit, he said, starting to go off louder. There's something happening in town. Not sure, to be honest. I just got an alert that said stay inside and don't fall asleep. Might not want to stay in that rocker too long just in case, I said. He only laughed. Son, I've taken Saturday naps at noon since I was a boy. Didn't even miss them when I was riding choppers in Vietnam. The cell phones ain't gonna stop that. He chuckled out. I couldn't help but laugh along with him. Man had his priorities after all. Not like I could argue him out of taking a nap on his porch. Well, enjoy it. I'll catch you later. Tell Mrs. Hutch I still want her Swedish meatball recipe when she gets a chance." We both gave parting waves and I stepped back inside, moving into my home office just down the hallway from the front door. Cracking the blinds here, I had a full view of the neighborhood, including Hutch now beginning to nod off on his porch. While I booted up my computer and started getting a little bit of work done, I just figured I would keep an eye on things. I don't know how much time had passed, maybe minutes, maybe an hour at most, but I started noticing him kind of jerking around in the seat. I mean, the guy was in his late 70s, so I got a little nervous and I started to head outside, seeing what if he needed help or was just having a bad dream. I barely made it off my porch when his head quite literally ejected from his body. I don't know how else to describe it. It fired right off his shoulders like a damn firework on Independence Day. As soon as it did though, something else just sprouted right from the bloody stump, taking up residence where his head was before. It looked like this centipede thing. Tons of spindly legs coming out of the sides with one huge hexic eye right in the center. It bent and swayed on the shoulders as it extended from his body, getting used to it before making it stand, walking into his house next. For a minute I was split on what to do. Either run back into my place and barricade the door or run in and try to save Mrs. Hutch, assuming that she was in there. Not that I had to assume long, as a scream cut the air just seconds later. No time to think, I ran full burst up the porch steps and through the front door, emerging on a terrifying scene. Hutch's body was pressing down on his wife, the massive centipede bursting from his stump neck and striking at her. It had already gotten her a couple of times, dozens of sharp tendrils extending from the mouth of the thing that had nicked at her skin. Apparently that's all it took. Something secreted in those pincers was winning the battle over Mrs. Hutch, making her quickly lose consciousness and fall to the floor. As she fell asleep, the Hutch centipede thing got up, turning attention to me now as it walked forward. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, no, leave me alone, Hutch, I swear to God," I said, scrambling to find anything that could function as a weapon. There was a bag of golf clubs right by the door. Not sure what I was about to get from it, but gripping one of the handles, I pulled it up, emerging with a driver. Good enough. No hesitation. This thing didn't have a damn head and it didn't have any rights other than what it was about to get. I swung the club hard, catching the centipede thing right on the tip, making it hiss as it reeled back. Mrs. Hutch began writhing on the floor, screams coming through in guttural barks as something tore at her throat from the inside. Her head didn't fly off nearly as violently as his did, but it stretched and tore instead, pain and fear in her eyes the whole time. It looked like even while she was feeling this, she was just going through a nightmare in her sleep, seeing death play out on an infinite scale in her mind. The centipede that emerged her was smaller than the other, and it didn't seem to have control over the body quite yet, maybe because it had appeared too early. Either way, Hutch was still bearing down on me, and so I swung again, this time retreating for the door, desperately to get to safety. Backing through the door nearly caused me to trip over the threshold, swinging once more at the terrifying bug as it lashed out at me. This time it caught my swing, twisting around the club in order to take it away from me, as arms raised to grab onto whatever of me it could reach. Stumbling had probably saved my life and giving me a slight distance to turn and start running down the steps, back over to my house. The clouds were still obscuring the sky above, fresh flashes of lightning beginning to go off above. Something was in the air, different than after any other storm, and the sound of screams began to reach me faintly over the still air. I wasn't the only one contending with what was going on, apparently. The door slammed behind me as I dove through, quickly deadbolting and locking it before drawing my blinds closed. It only took seconds for them to start banging on the door then, massive thuds landing on the solid wood. Way more power behind the hits than old Hutch ever had in him in his prime. At this point, I'm not going to mess around with whatever is happening. There was an old shotgun up in the attic in a case, left to me by Gramps when he had died a few years ago. The thing should still work, and if I remembered right, there was some ammo on hand in the same case that it came with. I don't think that I would have ever taken it out of the case otherwise. Thankfully, I could still remember all the shooting lessons that he gave me when I was a kid. A gun nut as he was, and it all began to come back. It wasn't much, just a pump action. 7 shells left in the ammo box that was in the case. It would be enough. I racked it, making sure there wasn't already a shell in the chamber before beginning to load them in. The banging was still going on at the door downstairs, but only one of them remained from the sound of it. It was cold up here in the attic. Stale air and insulation the only thing other than old boxes to keep me company. For a few minutes, I checked out, I think taking in the weight of everything happening today. Hell, I needed a moment just to prepare myself. Centipede head or not, this was still my neighbor for the last 4 years. He and his wife had invited me into their home plenty of times, fed me some great dinners, and now it was like some messed up Resident Evil game I was getting to live through. A skittering from the other side of the attic wall brought me back to the present. The thin wood and insulation was being pressed inward, something tapping along as it tried to find a way in from the other side. Probably the worst noise that I've ever heard too, like dozens of roaches just skittering across a wooden board. My skin was crawling. Hoisting the shotgun to my shoulder and aiming as the taps moved closer to the small vent in the wall leading to outside. I could see the shadow over the slats before legs began poking through them, working to stretch what it could and fit through, desperate to get to me. I kept working at the slats for a moment before one finally gave in, weathered from years. This house was old, so not too much of a surprise. But as soon as it gave, that was the reinforcement that the crawler needed, forcing its way further in and extending further through the vent, catching sight of me right as I pulled the trigger. It burst, guts and pieces of the shell flying everywhere while legs rained down. The remainder of it slumped over, dangling in the window as I made my way back through the attic door, still focusing my gun right on the damn thing. I got downstairs and I heard Mrs. Hutch still beating on the door, fistfalls getting louder as she seemingly gained more power behind the blows. I hesitated only momentarily, unlocking the deadbolt and stepping off to the side into the hallway, beyond the door as it opened. Gun trained right at where eye level would be, or at least where I hoped it would be when she eventually entered the house. I almost shit my pants when this thing curled right around the doorway and stared into my soul before I got it together and I pulled the trigger. It burst, spattering guts all over me and making my ears ring at close range. Her body fell forward into the doorway, remains of the centipede skittering on the wooden floor as it went through death convulsions. I stepped out, partially to see if anyone else came out on hearing the noise and partially to see what had happened to Hutch's body. The answer was slumped on the lawn right by the wall, centipede extended all the way up and through the attic vent. His body wasn't even able to fall completely, with the centipede holding it up, likely at the limit that it could stretch. Legs ran the entire length of it, making me shiver just by looking. And grabbing Mrs. Hutch's ankles, I pulled her back out onto the lawn, getting her out of the way so that I could close the door and relock it. Without the worry of what the hell it might do to me, I was able to look closer at it now, seeing that the centipede I had thought it was actually something much worse. Every segment of the thing was part of her spine, vertebrae growing over each other as it extended out of her stump neck. The end of it where the shotgun had blasted off looked like a frayed electrical wire. Dozens of smaller strands of spinal cord unraveling in at the top. I shivered, unsure of what the hell was going on, but knowing that it wasn't something I wanted any part of. The door slammed behind me. This time though, I took a few other safety measures, pushing the recliner from the living room against the door frame to block it. I tried calling EMS to see if there was anyone that would even pick up, but sirens were blaring through the still air, mixing with far-off screams as more of the town began to contend with what was happening. The line was dead, much like I had expected, and all I could do was sigh, turning on the television and knowing that our dinky little town would never get the attention of the news. Sure enough, just more crap. A CEO arrested for money laundering. A reality star who was fighting back against the plastic surgery rumors. Another war on the horizon. God, I was tired. I remember pacing my house until the sun went down, just hoping that I could hear something about what was happening in the world outside. Meanwhile, the cloud cover was still there, jolts of electricity lighting up the skyline every so often. The sirens eventually faded, but the screams didn't, only changing position as more of the town found the same thing that I did, just without as much luck surviving. Good news was that I had a decent amount of food. My grocery trip this morning was for a pretty spontaneous get-together, not that I had heard from anyone since that first alert had popped up. If my friends were still out there, I hoped that they were still human at least. If not, who knows, maybe they made it out before things got bad. For once, I was kind of thankful for my bad sleep schedule. Insomnia was something that I've struggled with on and off my entire life, going whole nights without sleep at some points and just segueing into the next day. Not sleeping wasn't too much of a challenge for me, for a while anyway. Eventually, I just drew the blinds and tried to find something to do to keep my mind occupied, hoping that some alert would come through, telling me that everything was okay now and it was just some, I don't know. Nothing about this would fit into any natural explanation. Who knows, maybe it's still all a dream and I'm just asleep in bed, unaware that my alarm's gone off at this point. Wishful thinking, of course. Around 2 in the morning, someone set one of the houses down the street on fire. Despite the rainy conditions that had persisted since the first warning, the entire neighborhood quickly began to catch with no firefighters coming to get it under control. I was nearly dozing off in my living room, television on loud to hopefully keep me awake with the noise. I figured with where it was relative to the street outside, the sound wouldn't reach too terribly far, giving me some safety. I only realized the fire was going when I started to smell the smoke. Looking out my front window, it revealed that it had already jumped pretty far, only about 2 houses away from me. I was going to need to get the hell out of here or face the flames. I took everything that I could, a shotgun, a little cooler of food that I threw together that could easily be eaten without prep, some medical supplies from the bathroom. I loaded it all up in my car and I hit the road. It only took me about 5 minutes of driving to reach the edge of town and realize that things were far, far more messed up than I had originally believed. Cue my surprise when I'm driving along the highway going slower than normal, thankfully, because I wanted to be vigilant, and I run my car smack into a solid wall. I can't believe how fortunate I was to get out relatively unscathed, only a nasty bruise on my shoulder. And getting out of the car though, I thought that I had hit my head and gone to hell, because things just stopped making sense. The sky above was still sparking with electricity, blanketed by dark clouds against the night. It obscured the top of whatever wall was blocking my way, though I don't know if it was so much of a wall as more of a boundary. Not going to lie, I was feeling very Truman Show-esque, or maybe Looney Tunes considering how much of a weird fever dream this all was. The barrier had the road and landscape around town perfectly laid over it, not painted, I don't think, but kind of like a television. The clouds crackled with lightning in the distance, despite the distance not actually being there. Maybe it was all just a really thick window. I honestly couldn't tell with the darkness in my aching body. Whatever the hell it was, there was no way for me to get through. No staircase with a door and no hatch leading through, not even a painted tunnel. My car in the meantime was, well, not doing great. The front end was accordion to hell, folding all over itself. It's a miracle that I was still alive, but honestly the miracle made it feel more like I was trapped in this hell, damned to never escape. Well, I guess it's time to find another plan. To say things had played out weird since then is an understatement. You know, when you're in a nightmare, everything that happens is the most illogical shitstorm of a sequence. Like sometimes you'll just arrive at your next destination, something will appear out of nowhere. Nothing is off limits and anything could happen without the slightest hint of justification. That's how reality is moving right now. Genuinely, I don't even know where the hell I am right now. I'm holding up at a Wally's all the way on the other side of the town. My car is nowhere to be found, the shotgun is gone, and I'm sitting in the cheese aisle, pile driving through a deli tray like it's the last meal that I've ever had. It was like I was sleepwalking the entire time from when I noticed the barrier to now, sitting here stuffing my face. I nearly choked because of how taken aback I was. It reminded me of smoking some bad stuff back in my college days and finishing off a fifth of cheap vodka. Total blackout. My watch said that it was around 2 in the afternoon on Monday now. Hours lost and no idea where. Suddenly someone came around the corner into my aisle, making me stand and get ready to run. Whoa, you alright? A voice asked me. Female, probably around my age. Seemed familiar. Perry, you okay over there? When did I get here? I asked, realizing that my voice was shaky now. She hurried over, putting a hand on my shoulder. I recognize her now. Sarah, one of the cashier girls that works here during the weekends. About 5 hours ago. You've been pretty out of it though, saying stuff about a wall. Looks like you took a pretty nasty bump, she said. I was starting to notice my surroundings more at the dim grocery store lit by every other halogen bulb in the place. Dark overcast lights outside with the occasional lightning. Shit, it wasn't a dream. There's more of those things out there, yeah? I said, looking toward the nearest exit now. The deli windows were boarded up tight against the outside, while the front doors were barricaded by all the shopping carts that could be brought in. God, I can't remember anything. Hey, it's okay, Perry, it's all good. Come on over and talk to the others. We're trying to see if we can put anything together, she said, beckoning me back toward the stockroom. There were 4 others in there right now, all gathered in a little fort of pallets and supplies. One of them had set up with a knife, sharpening mop handles to use for defense. 2 guys, 2 girls, with Sarah and I joining to bring it to an even split between the 6 of us. You're looking rough, man, said one of the guys, the one not sharpening broom handles. I recognized him from somewhere, but the face just didn't quite reconcile with anyone that I could think of. You run into the spines. The centipede things, yeah, I said, nodding. The others all murmured in agreement. Apparently, we had all seen it at this point, surviving to get this far. I'm sorry, I just can't remember how I got here. Nothing makes sense. Yeah, it's starting to get that way for all of us. One of the girls, a blonde covered in tattoos, said, I was sitting safe in the truck stop off 90 just a few minutes ago and now I'm here. Not a clue how. You've been here for a few hours though, Sarah mentioned, looking at her. The other woman, a smaller brunette with glasses that made her look like the binoculars from Toy Story, nodded in agreement. Sarah looked to the steak guy next. What about you? Stock it up in case of vampires. He just kept on carving, sharpening one end of a mop handle that was already finished with a wicked point. Even then, he continued, his only words, I had a baby. That was enough for the rest of us to infer what must have happened. Not many humans spend most of their time sleeping, but a baby, Jesus, poor guy. And we left him to his steak sharpening after that. Have any other alerts come through? I asked, looking around at the others. I feel like there's something that I might have missed somewhere, some crucial event, but everything was a blur. Nothing about how I got here made sense, with everyone else sharing similar feelings. At this point, even if we could get out of town, would it be too late for us? Just the same stuff. Don't fall asleep. Stay awake no matter what. Isolate any who may fall asleep. Bullshit like that. The other man said. I still couldn't place where I knew him from, with big bushy eyebrows that met in the middle and a thick comb over on top of his head. I was visiting my grandpa at the senior center when things started going crazy. Old people napping everywhere. Heads just started popping off like champagne corks. Yeah, what the hell is going on with those? I asked, still trying to gather my bearings. I thought they were like bugs. I have a theory that something happens when we enter REM sleep. Binoculars mentioned. It awakens whatever makes the spine take over. So that's just their spine? Tattoo asked now, panic in her eyes. I swear the one that I saw still had eyes on the end of it, looking at me the entire time it came after, and then those freaky threads that were coming out of it. Don't let those touch you, I mentioned, recounting the story of the Hutch family. They all shuddered except for Steak, who just kept staring blankly at the sharp point that he was making. He stopped carving after a moment, staring at the nasty tip on the javelin that he had made. Hey man, you okay? Be careful with that. I'm sorry, Millie, he said, standing up and situating the point of the carved handle on his neck, tilting it a little ways inward. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, knowing that you're about to see something awful yet you're too terrified to move in time. He situated both hands on the handle, pushing the point into his neck so hard that a little bead of blood began to ooze out, and he threw himself forward toward the ground. The other end of the handle didn't have a mop head on it, just metal and rubber for holding it in place. It hit the ground, catching on a crack in the concrete that stopped it suddenly, holding it upward at an angle. The force of him falling forward made the point immediately puncture right through the underside of his head, managing to poke far enough through to come out the other side of his skull. God, why? Why did he do that? Sarah was backing away from the body, screaming now, while I and the other strange man just jumped back and stopped, unsure of how to process what was going on. Binoculars and Tattoo were holding each other, both in tears. He's dead. Steak let out a half gurgle, almost a comical noise as if he was reassuring us that he was still somehow kicking. His feet staggered forward a couple of steps, quickly beginning to slip in the blood pooling around him. I motioned for everyone to leave the stockroom, heading back into the main store and away from the horror in front of us. Is it bad if I'm jealous of him? Honestly, at the rate this is playing out, taking myself out doesn't seem like the worst option there is. It's better than nodding off and having my spine rip out anyway. Exhaustion began setting in harder around then, with my irritability immediately beginning to turn up as my tiredness had mounted. Tattoo and binoculars were still crying. Strange Face wandered off to do his own thing, though I'm not sure what that involved. Sarah was near catatonic at this point, staring off into blank space behind her register, standing at attention like she was waiting for items to come down the line. The crying began to get on my nerves, sending me elsewhere to try and find something else to keep my mind busy. It started to get dark outside, lightning still popping through the clouds on occasion, when I found a small pocket radio on one of the shelves in the back. I swear as I was walking around back there, Steak was following my every move though. At some point I'm pretty sure that I saw him swivel around in his pole, trying to get a better look at what I was doing. When I checked him though, he had no pulse, eyes glazed over in death. Nonetheless, the feeling persisted. It took me a minute to find batteries for the radio, but turning it on got me nothing. Just static on every station, blaring out with the same dull drone. I was about to give up when it suddenly shifted, a monotone voice coming over the tinny speaker. "Stay awake until the alert is lifted. Thank you. Attention, collective personnel are on site to assess the situation. If you have found yourself in a Class 4 night terror, please do not be alarmed. Stay where you are, find the nearest weapon, and defend yourself. Please stay awake until the alert is lifted. Thank you." It cut off after that, and I shook my head. My eyes were beginning to burn from the lack of sleep, drying out something terrible. I pushed the radio aside, not turning it off completely, but zoning out into a daydream for a moment. "Attention, collective personnel are on site to assess the situation. If you have found yourself in a Class 4 night terror, please do not be alarmed. Stay where you are, find the nearest weapon, kill yourself." My blood ran cold, hearing the new deviation on the instructions. A scream finished freezing it over at glacial temperatures only seconds later. From near the registers, a woman screamed, but also, oh God, the skittering, click-clack sound of the spines moving. Somebody fell asleep. Tattoo was the one. Her head was grotesquely stuck in the rafters of the grocery store, empty eye sockets staring down at us as our problems unfolded below. It was a macabre audience, but the spine bursting forth from her neck began to spew threads almost too thin for the eye to see. Little nerves spread through the air, feeling for anything near that they could latch onto. The spine just kept rising out of her, making me half expect to see her body collapse without it to hold everything to a center. The nerves grabbed onto binoculars and Sarah, bringing the two women in closer as they got a hold. Whatever it used to knock them out was effective though, because almost immediately it looked like they fell asleep. Within moments, their heads began to tear off, spines elongating out of the stumps to further stretch their necks until they had disconnected with loud pops. The white bone was covered in blood and viscera, with the vertebrae clacking together, appearing as spindly legs as parts of bone stretched and elongated. The strange man came walking out of the aisles nearby now, hands outstretched in reverence to the three-turned woman in front of him. He began to walk in closer, uncaring of the nerves reaching through the quickly unraveling spines. Their fibers twisted and fanned out around them, floating ever so close to him without touching as he seemed to dance in between them. "Yes, embrace your exhaustion. Delicious. he said, doing one of the grossest things that I had ever seen in my life. He was licking the viscera off the contracting spines as they wriggled, taking in their taste and relishing it. I just ran, and I didn't stop. I burst through the back door of the market and I kept on running. Suddenly, I'm out on Main Street, small buildings on every side. It's deserted, quiet with nobody else out there but me. The thunder rumbles overhead as more purple and green lightning crack through the clouds. A burst of static comes through the radio in my right hand. I didn't even realize it until I grabbed it. The same warning was playing, now with the new ending running every time. Checking my watch revealed that I had lost another day and a half somewhere along the way. Where, who the hell knows? I just arrived here, I guess. I don't even remember where I was trying to go in the first place. A strap digs into my neck as I turn around, looking to see if there's any place to find safety. The shotgun. Holy shit, the shotgun is slung over my back. How did I get it back? Did I make the trip back to my car and then come back to the center of town? That didn't matter then. I could hear them, hundreds of them. There was just the skittering sounds of tiny jagged feet on the pavement all around me. The clickety-clack of vertebrae as they smacked and scraped past each other. I could see the nerves flying into the sky above before they all even got here. Massive spinal columns extending out of every single body from a bloody stump where the neck should be. There was a small flower shop to my right on the road that I tried to duck into, but I couldn't get through the door. Even worse, when I looked at the door to see if I could break the glass, I realized that it wasn't even glass. It was fake. Just a picture on a wall showing a shop interior. A fake handle sticking out to fool idiots like me looking for safety. Oh, Perry, you must be tired. The strange man was back again, suddenly right in the middle of the crossed roads, looking right at me. His bushy eyebrows were furrowed, a small, buck-toothed smile breaking through his lips. God, why did he seem so familiar but so terror-inducing? Everything about him just looked uncanny, off by the slightest bit. An imperfect imperfection of a human. Oh, just take a little nap. We'll make sure that nobody bothers you. What in the hell are you, man? What's going on? I asked, tears breaking through my voice. I was hoping to play with the rest of you more, you know. I mean, I've been starved, don't get me wrong. But I wanted to have some fun with all of you. He was gleeful at this point. I thought you said that your grandpa turned. Was that a lie? I asked now, trying to stall it while I figured something out. Anything. Behind the dozens of spines that were lined up on each street, blocking the way out, I noticed that same solid backdrop. We were stuck here in the scene of a nightmare. No way in or out. This guy must be the one causing it. Was it a lie? It did happen just like all nightmares happen. Every little synapses firing in your brain is a very real situation. Just one that only you ever experience. What happened to you in one person's dream might be different than what really happens to you. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. All this cryptic shit was just making me more frustrated, already irritable from the lack of sleep. The nerves from all those spines kept inching closer, moving in toward me. There wasn't any way out of here. Attention, collective personnel are on site to assess the situation. If you found yourself in a Class 4 night terror, please do not be alarmed. Stay where you are and find the nearest weapon. Kill yourself. The radio cut through blaring static in that same message. The strange man rolled his eyes, giving a loud groan. Those assholes. You know they've kept me locked up for decades now. No wonder I've been able to eat so much. It's been forever since my last good meal. He began again. I pulled the shotgun off my back, hefting it at my shoulder and aiming it at him. He stopped, a look of surprise on his face as he walked closer, examining the shotgun from top to bottom before literally putting his eye to the barrel. Bang! My finger wasn't even on the trigger, but it still fired, blowing his brains out right in front of me. The entire top right half of his face was gone, back of the head included, and what was left of his mangled mouth was laughing maniacally. "You can't kill me on my home turf, Perry. Come on, be a good sport," he shouted as I fell back in fear, tasting the brain matter that had splattered upon the gun going off. It was everywhere, all over me, all over the street. There was too much of it to even make sense of from the wound. Too much for the short time that it had been open. And no head would have that many brains in it, right? They began piling on the street, blood pooling and running off into a sewer drain at the corner. Nerves kept coming closer, feeling their way toward me as the strange man laughed once more. "If you're hearing this, please end yourself before it's too late." The static bursted through to another voice, less monotone and more human now. His look went from amused to pissed off. "Oh, come on, don't ruin more of my fun," he said, laughing once more as he made a finger gun at the radio going pew and blasting it to smithereens. "Those stuffy old geezers don't know what they're talking about anyway. Come on, Perry, you're the last one still here. Last one standing, buddy. You survived this far, so what are you gonna do now?" The city around me faded away and I was suddenly in the middle of a raucous theme park, people bustling around in every direction. The strange man appeared, wearing mascot ears and eating a comically large cotton candy. "Are you gonna go to Disney? Have yourself a magical time," he said. The scene dropped out as soon as it came into view, water now flooding in from every direction, pouring over the edges of some invisible tank to sweep me away. I desperately reached for something to keep my balance, before feeling sand under my feet, solid ground once again. He appeared once more in comical tourist garb and a huge camera slung around his neck. He pushed the button on it, causing the flash to blind me, closing my eyes against the madness happening. An island vacation, maybe. Rest and rejuvenate. Flames burst to life everywhere, the smell of sulfur stinging at my nostrils. The bright light that blinded me only moments ago was replaced by a molten fire, billowing from the ground below my feet. The heat was more intense than anything I had ever felt. "Or maybe you just let me drag your poor soul down to hell, huh? How about that, Perry?" His laughter echoed in every direction around me, making me want to claw my ears out. My sanity was slipping with every passing second, exhaustion tugging at my last shreds. Meanwhile, he fluttered around me like some demon, spewing hate and vitriol at me from every direction. "No, stop," I said, flipping over the shotgun and putting the barrel in my own mouth. I could hear him realize what I was doing before I even knew it, but it was too late to stop me. I pulled the trigger, feeling the explosion rip at the back of my throat in excruciating detail. But I was still alive. Everything hurt, my entire skull felt hot, and my eardrums were ruptured. But I was still alive. "You idiot," I could hear him, faintly through the dull throbbing of blood in my ears. I tried to talk back, but felt my jaw just fall away, unsupported by the muscle. Did I mess up that bad? "You aim too low, give me that." He went to snatch the shotgun away from me before I could try again, but I was dedicated and determined even. I hoisted myself back, tilting my head and holding it to the roof of my mouth. It probably looked like I was trying to play a dang shotgun saxophone the way that I was moving, but I needed the momentum. Taking a page out of Steak's book, I threw myself forward, pumping the shotgun as I started moving, and I slammed the butt of the weapon into the hard rock at my feet. I felt it fire off one more time, successfully blasting my skull apart into a billion little fragments. He screamed at me as the hell around me faded to black, a sweet abyss of death. I almost choked, sitting up, gasping for air and feeling the cold tile under me as I scrambled to stand and run. Somebody pushed me back on the floor, shining a light into my eyes and holding them open. "Clear, he's clear," they shouted. "Give me a stretcher, the last one made it back." They were dressed in a nice suit, hair perfectly styled short. I looked up at the ceiling above me as hot bile burned in my throat, threatening to push its way up and out. Another man in a suit ran by, bringing a small medical kit with him. He began checking on me, taking blood pressure, vitals, anything that he could. "Where am I?" I asked, choking back the bile. "Wally's Grocer in Hazelwood, Georgia," the first agent that had shouted told me. "Do you remember what happened to you, sir?" "How did I get back here?" I asked, still unsure if I was going by the weird nightmare logic or actually got here in a real way. "You've been here for a few days, sir. Tell me, did you see this person during your ordeal?" He held up a rough sketch, showing a man with bushy eyebrows, a thick comb-over, and buck-tooth smile. The strange man who was pulling all the strings. All I could do was nod, still holding bile back. God, I was starving. A few days. The agent took my confirmation, beginning to talk into a monitor. "We have confirmation of a nocturne in the area. Please begin cleanse protocol," they said, getting an affirmative over the radio. The medical guy started to help me up and guiding me toward the door of the grocery store. We stepped out into bright sunlight, almost blinding me as I tried to adjust to it. When I finally did, the sight that met me was something that made me almost shut back down. Body bags lined up down the central street in town. Some fine, others with long, thick spinal cords stretched with vertebrae into small legs curling at the edge. No room to zip the bag around them. Oh my God. I fainted then and there, losing consciousness again. The next thing that I knew, I woke up in a hospital room, unsure of what was going on. The people who brought me here have been in and out, asking me every damn question imaginable, cross-referencing others that had talked to me and doing an entire investigation. From what one told me, this was a contained event, though most of Hazelwood was, well, dead. 3 days and a nightmare and the town collapsed, everyone giving into their exhaustion while that thing preyed on them. What a way to go. I saw Steak walking through the hallway outside my door earlier today. He was carrying a little bundle, talking to it and singing its songs. I noticed on one of his passes that a hand was sticking up from the bundle. Plastic, lifeless, but not to him. The nightmare was only beginning for him. No matter how much I've tried to get sleep since coming here, it just doesn't last for long. The night terrors were rough, the spines haunting me through any dream, no matter how good it starts. They said they're going to prescribe something for a dreamless sleep tonight. I hope it works. It was 10:31 when my phone buzzed. Emergency alert. Do not enter underground structures such as basements. Stay above ground until the all clear. My husband looked up from his phone and stared at me. "Did you just get a..." "Yeah." "That's creepy," I said, glancing at the stairs. Our kid had fallen asleep for the night about an hour ago. What do you think's going on?" "I don't know," he replied. "Could it be like a gas leak?" Radon or something. We'd had a radon pump in our basement since we had moved here. Maybe there was some weird influx of it or something. I ran up the stairs to check on our 5-year-old daughter as Luke flicked on the TV. Grace was sleeping peacefully, her blanket wrapped around her. I made sure that she was breathing, comfortable, totally fine before heading back downstairs. When I did, Luke was glued to the TV, which said the same thing. A black screen, pixelated white letters, blocky colors jittering along the top and bottom of the screen. Emergency alert. Do not enter underground structures. Maybe we should get out of here, I said. But it's late and Grace has school tomorrow. Yeah, so? We'll miss school. We can go to my mom's. Luke crossed his arms and stared at the TV. He then flicked to CNN and other news channels, but whatever was happening here must have been local, because it was the same political drivel re-airing from earlier in the day. There is not a blip of the emergency alert anywhere except the local news channel. I pulled out my phone and did some Google searches. Nothing came up. So I shot off a text to Lacey, the mom of one of Grace's friends, who lived in the next development over. We had only lived here since the school year had started, so it's not like I had a whole network of people to ask. She didn't respond. I think we should, I said, grabbing a duffel bag out of the closet. What about work? Don't you work remotely on Mondays anyway? Yeah, but... I walked over to our basement door. The chain was latched. I hurried into the kitchen, opened the drawer, and pulled out some postal tape. What are you doing? If it's radon or something, I don't want that stuff all in our house, I said, crouching along the bottom and taping the crack under the door. I think that they would evacuate us if that were the case. I looked up at him as I yanked another long piece of tape off the roll. Okay, so what do you think it is? He shrugged. When I had taped all the cracks, I brought the duffel bag upstairs, filled it with a few random outfits for me and Grace, along with my laptop and a few of her favorite dolls. And then I grabbed the cooler and loaded our leftover pasta and yogurts into it. Within 10 minutes, I was ready to go out the door. I'll pack up the car. Can you go and grab Grace? I asked. Luke went upstairs. I walked down the driveway, weighed down with bags. It was a chilly and clear night. Stars twinkled high above me. The street was exceedingly quiet, the tall, scraggly pines of the surrounding pine barrens stretching up to the sky. I heard the echo of a dog barking somewhere. If everybody got the alert, wouldn't there be more people deciding to leave? I glanced at the house across the street. It was completely dark except for the light above the garage that flicked on when I came out of the house. I opened the back hatch and threw our stuff in. Luke came out after, carrying Grace, wrapped in blankets. She blinked sleepily. I strapped her in and Luke grabbed some stuff, and then we were pulling out of the driveway on the road to my mom's house an hour away. She fell back asleep. I told Luke, watching her face flick into view with the light of the passing street lamps. Good. My phone buzzed. I reached for it. Emergency alert. Your phone's GPS indicates that you're leaving the city limits. We do not recommend evacuating. Please return home and stay above ground. What the heck? I whispered. What? Luke asked. There's another alert. It's saying it knows that we're leaving. It's tracking our GPS and it's telling us to stay. Luke glanced at my phone. Wait, seriously? Yeah. That data's supposed to be private, he said. Isn't it? I would think so unless, I don't know, maybe there's some emergency protocols that allow the FBI to access it or something. We fell into uncomfortable silence. Luke clicked on the turn signal and switched lanes. You don't want me to turn around, right? He asked quietly. I glanced down at my phone. No, I don't. The highway was empty, not a single car in sight. That made me uneasy. I mean, surely other people would be evacuating, unless they were all actually obeying the second message. But who even trusts the government these days? I did another Google search. No results popped up. I refreshed over and over again. Wouldn't something be on the internet by now? We were 5 miles out of town now. I should be relieved, but I wasn't. I leaned against the window. The cold glass pressed against my forehead. The pine trees flashed by, skinny and tilted, and then gave way to a charred and barren patch of forest. Both sides of the highway were burnt to the ground. I had read somewhere that some pine cones only opened in extreme temperatures, like from a wildfire. Fires and regrowth were part of the cycle here, part of the ecosystem, in flux between death and rebirth like a phoenix. My phone buzzed, and my heart dropped, but it wasn't an alert. It was a text from Lacey. Only 2 words. What alert? My fingers raced across the screen. Didn't you get an emergency alert saying to stay above ground? No. Lacey didn't get an alert, I said. Luke paused. What? What if the alerts were only sent to our phones? I asked, my voice shaking. I glanced back at Grace, still peacefully asleep, head lolling softly from each bump of the car. Luke shook his head. That's crazy. Nobody can send messages like that. Just the government or whatever. What if it's a trap? My voice shook harder. What if the only safe place was our basement? That's just your OCD talking, he said softly and emphatically. We're doing the right thing. There's something weird going on in town, like a gas leak, and we got out. That's obviously the safest thing to do. I stared out at the charred pines. There were a few that hadn't burnt up, standing tall and stilted in the darkness. I stared out at them, wondering why they were spared. One of them moved. What the? The car screeched to a stop. My body lurched forward, the seatbelt locked, keeping my head from hitting the dash. Sorry, that deer just His voice died in his throat. We both stared at the lower legs of something illuminated in the headlights. Thin and spindly, but definitely not a deer's. They ended in twisted toes, not hooves, and extended several feet up into the darkness. Silhouetted against the starry sky beyond the reach of our headlights, I could see something tall and spindly, skeletal, crisscrossing lines of bones or sticks or something else entirely. As I stared at it, as it stared at me, a wave of dizziness washed through me. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Weight pressed down on my head, and immense pressure bearing down on me. Thwack! Something at the side of the car with incredible force. The entire car rocked on its wheels. I screamed. Thwack! A mess of lines, bones, sticks outside my window. Empty air between them, the stars and the pines rippling strangely behind it. Luke stomped down on the accelerator. The car shot forward. We swerved around the thing and then past the burnt section of forest and continued down the dark and twisting highway. My phone buzzed. Emergency alert. All clear. Please return home immediately. We got to my mom's house around midnight. A squat, brick ranch on a residential road. I glanced warily at the pines behind her house stretching up to the sky before picking up Grace and carrying her inside. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table waiting for us. Her fingers wrapped against the mug in her hand. The entire house smelled like that familiar mix of coffee and dust. I started for the guest bedroom, and then I got a better idea. The ranch had a lower level that was half underground. It had been finished into an office, but there was a couch down there. I could have Grace sleep on the couch and we would sleep on the floor. Where are you going? Mom was standing behind me, eyebrow raised, as I undid the chain lock to the basement floor. I think we're going to sleep down there. No, you're not. It's all dusty down there. I haven't cleaned for ages. There could even be mice and we're sleeping down there. Those alerts were probably just a prank, she continued, or a glitch or something. Besides, you're like an hour away now. I had only told my mom about the alerts. I didn't tell her about the thing in the woods. My mom was not a supernatural person. She would definitely chalk it up to a trick of the light or something. Casper himself could be floating in front of her face and she would call it a trick of the light. Oh, you're being ridiculous, she continued. You know, this reminds me of that time that you taped up the door to the attic. You remember that? When the exterminator had found a bat up there, you were worried that there were more with rabies, and they could flatten themselves through the cracks between the door and the ceiling and bite you while you're sleeping. You don't feel the bites when you're sleeping, I growled back. A lot of people have gotten rabies from bats in their houses, and they can squeeze through really tiny places. My point is, she interrupted, it's unsanitary down there. Grace was getting incredibly heavy in my arms. I glanced at Luke, who was just standing in the doorway wide-eyed, like he had walked in on a gunfight. And then I pulled the chain lock and yanked the door open. Kate, Mom said warningly. Halfway down the stairs, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I got Grace settled on the couch and then pulled it out. Emergency alert. Your phone's GPS indicates that you have stopped in redacted New Jersey. Disobeying an emergency alert is a federal offense. Please return home and stay above ground. I lifted my phone to show Luke, who was coming down behind me. His face looked ghastly pale in the white light. Mom was right behind him and craned her neck to read the alert too. Oh, that's BS, she said. It's not a federal offense, it's a state offense. And that would be an evacuation order like for a hurricane or something. She shook her head. You know what this sounds like? One of those scammers. I got a call from someone claiming to be my grandson. It's not a scam, Luke interrupted without elaborating. And then he worked in silence, putting the blanket over Grace and getting her comfortable. I flicked on the light and checked for mouse droppings, but I didn't see any. I'll get the rest of our stuff, he said, leaving my mom and I alone. Her expression softened as she looked down at Grace, at her perfect little face. Do you need anything else? No, I don't think so. She nodded and went back upstairs. I glanced around. The office stuff was in the leftmost corner, the desk covered with papers and a single photo of my dad. He had been gone for 7 years now, and it seemed like every year, more and more of his stuff got tucked away, moved downstairs, shoved into storage. I swallowed down the feeling and glanced around the rest of the room. The door next to the desk led to the unfinished storage area. On the other end of the basement was a sliding glass door that led out into the backyard. I didn't like that at all. We were technically underground where we stood, but the rightmost corner with the door was above ground. Did that mean that we were still vulnerable? Those things couldn't fit through a glass door, I thought, but they couldn't fit through a normal door either, and apparently we wouldn't have been safe in our own home. I stared out the glass door, afraid that I might see one of them out there. Maybe this was a bad idea to stay here. We were an hour away, sure, but the pines were still right at our door. Not officially the Pine Barrens, but the surrounding pinelands ecosystem, which was almost the same thing. If those things came from the Barrens, they were only in the burned areas, I reminded myself. I imagined a pine cone spiraling in midair, petals opening as fire raged around it, and skeletons made of sticks prying their way out of the thing, creeping along the ground and stretching and growing towards the sky. Were there any maps of the burned areas? I pulled up Google Maps looking for the blackened areas, but the information would be out of date, wouldn't it? My phone buzzed. I expected another alert, but it was a text from Lacey instead. My friend Rochelle got the same alert that you did, by the way. Super weird. My heart dropped. And did Rochelle, whoever she was, listen to it? Tell her not to listen to the alert, I started typing. It's a trap. And then I realized how unhinged that sounded. I didn't even know Lacey that well. I thought for a second and then typed a new message. Can you give me your number? I want to ask her about it. It's pretty weird that it targeted both of us and no one else. Sure, let me ask her, was the reply. As I waited, Luke came back down the stairs carrying our stuff, computer cords and stuff nearly falling out of his arms. Someone else got the alert, I whispered. One of Lacey's friends. Really? Yeah, I asked for her number. A minute later, the number came in. I dialed it immediately. On the third ring, she picked up. Hello? Hi, this is, Kate, Lacey's friend. I started awkwardly. We got the emergency alert too, but we think that it's a trap. There's something off about it. A pause. But it came from the government. How could it be a trap? It seems like nobody else is getting it. When alerts are sent out like that, they're sent to all the phones in a certain location. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Well, we were just about to go to bed here, so I'd better go. Wait, I think the basement is safe and everything else isn't, I said quickly. I think someone's trying to lure people into staying above ground. Okay, maybe, she said unconvincingly. Look, I gotta go, sorry. A few seconds later, the call ended. Oh crap. She didn't believe me, I said, looking up at Luke, my lip trembling. She and her kids and her family, they're all going to. Hey, you tried, he said, wrapping his arms around me. That's the best you can do. I couldn't help it. I cried as we lay on a blanket on the floor and got ready to sleep next to Grace. I looked down at her perfect little face, and then Luke and I snuggled under the blankets together. Hey, kiddo. I woke up with a start. For a second, I thought I was in my own bed, but then the roughness of the carpet, the aching in my back, it brought me back to reality. My father's voice, rough and warm, lingered from the dream. I could almost feel his arms around me, the summer sunlight beating down on us as we played at the creek behind the house. I rolled over to check on Grace. Her eyes were wide open. She was staring behind me, at the sliding glass door. Slowly, she raised a hand and pointed over my shoulder. I turned around. There was something twisting and turning, contorting itself, trying to get in through the sliding glass door like a dog through a cat door. It did it silently except for a low clicking sound, like the popping of joints. All the blood drained from my face. Dark, sinewy legs like spider legs, twisting and turning in the moonlight, squeezing itself ever so slowly through the hole that it made. I now saw the shattered glass scattering the floor. I grabbed Luke and shook him. Luke! The thing fell still. I couldn't see eyes or a face, but I felt it in my gut. It was staring at me. Dizziness swept over me. I stumbled forward, losing my balance. It was like I was standing on the deck of a boat. The ground seemed to shift and tilt underneath me. I just wanted to lie down until the world stopped turning. No, I screamed internally. You can't let that thing get Grace. I glanced around the room, looking for something that could be used as a weapon. Anything. Go in there, I said to Grace, pointing to the storage room, or at least I thought I was. Everything was tilting and moving around me. Go, hide. I stumbled forward, but all the colors were bleeding together now. Everything was hazy as a dream. My father was standing in front of me, standing there in the basement, but his face was all wrong. His eye drooped out of his socket, like something had squeezed his skull. His grin was crooked. Hey, kiddo. he said in a voice that sounded off-key. Nausea filled me and I started vomiting, warm liquid down my shirt, splashing on my feet. My dad, not my dad, stood tilted, like gravity had suddenly changed. One arm was too long and hung limply from its socket. I miss you so much. Stop, please stop. Come with me. We can be a family again. Stop. I never got to meet Grace. Wouldn't it be so wonderful for me to finally meet her? The world tilted and shifted. I stared at my father, his left eye drooping like jelly. His crooked smile, his gaunt face, his limp arms. I opened my mouth. Hot pain shot up my shoulder. I fell to my knees instantly. I tried to cry out to say stop again, to tell Grace to run for her life, but all that came out was a scream of pain, and another and another. When I finally opened my eyes, the world had stopped tilting. Luke was dragging me across the floor back from the glass window. Grace was peeking out of the storage area, terrified. I touched my shoulder, stinging with pain. My fingers came away red. It bit me. I'm dying. What? My phone began to ring. Shaking all over, I reached into my pocket and pulled it out. I recognized the number. It was Rochelle. You're right, she said breathlessly, no preamble. What? I asked, my voice hoarse. About the alert. My husband, he has some friends who work with cell phones and stuff, and She took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. They traced the signal. It's not coming from the government or the town hall or whatever. I chewed my lip and held my breath. It's coming from the middle of the woods. The hospital was mostly empty. Quiet, dark, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the walls were a sickly shade of seafoam green. The doctor, a tall, thin man in his 60s, didn't seem to believe my story, but he admitted me for observation anyway. My mom was staying at her friend's house with Grace in their non-walkout basement. I didn't want to leave her. I wanted her right here with me, but the hospital was above ground, and someone needed to treat my wound before I bled to death. Luke left me for a moment to use the bathroom. I closed my eyes, not intending to sleep, but I was so tired and the bite was now only a dull throbbing pain. I drifted in and out of consciousness until I heard two voices in the room. I snapped my eyes open for a moment to see the doctor and a nurse hovering over me. They were talking softly to each other, looking concerned. I quickly shut my eyes again, pretending to be asleep. I caught a bit of their conversation. It's just like that man, the nurse whispered. The one that was admitted last night. John something. A pause. I know. What do you think this is? I don't know, Rita. I really don't. Do you think that we should give her diazepam preventatively? The nurse asked. The other one, he screams so much. The family will ask questions. There's no reason for her to be on diazepam for an animal bite. Well, they'll ask questions when she's dead, too. The nurse snapped back. The least we can do is make her comfortable. Shh. Oh, God. I didn't open my eyes, but I had jumped when the nurse said dead. I now could feel both of them looking at me, their eyes boring through my closed lids. Let's talk somewhere else, the doctor said. Hurried footsteps on tile, and then nothing. I opened my eyes. I'm going to die. I don't know how long I lay there wallowing in my own misery, but footsteps jolted me awake. Luke was walking back in. How's the pain now? Bad. I told him what I had overheard, my voice quivering. That doesn't mean anything, he said, but I could hear the concern in his voice. We're going to get you out of here and everything's going to go back to normal. The mayor or whatever will release some statement about a faulty alert system, and... Stop. He looked at me warily but shut up. The two of us sat in silence. A few times Luke opened his mouth looking like he was going to say something but then quickly shut it again. Footsteps pattered by outside in the hallway. The tinny sounds of the TV droned on in the corner. "I'm going to call Rochelle," I told him. The line rang 3 times before she picked up. I told her everything about the bite, about the things that I saw. I was afraid of sounding crazy, but when I had finally finished, she sounded like she was crying on the other end. "I saw my baby," she said in a low tone, barely above a whisper. I had a miscarriage at 14 weeks, and I saw this little basket with a tiny pink thing bundled up inside, and I heard her cry." Her voice broke. "I knew it wasn't real, but I still went toward it, before Ravi pulled me back." "I'm so sorry," I said, the phone trembling in my hands. "Thank you." "But it didn't hurt you, right? Bite you or claw you?" "No, I don't think so." The silence stretched out between us. "So what do we do?" I asked. "Just run from it forever?" "I've been talking to someone who knows about this more than we do. Maybe I should come see you. What hospital are you at?" She told me that she would be there in an hour. Rochelle was a short, thin woman with brown skin and thick-framed glasses. She wore a t-shirt with some sort of video game reference on it and faded jeans. As she hurried in, she was wringing her hands, twisting them over and over again. Following after her was a woman in her 50s. Her salt and pepper hair was cropped short and her skin was deathly pale, like she had never seen the sun. "This is Jamie," Rochelle said, gesturing to the older woman. "She's a professor and specializes in this kind of stuff. I've been talking to her for the past few hours and she wanted to see you. This kind of stuff." The woman abruptly sat down and leaned in towards me, like I was some kind of specimen that she was eager to examine. "You know what's going on here?" I asked, as she stared at my shoulder in a way that made me extremely uncomfortable. "Well, yes, sort of. Have you ever heard of something called speculative evolution?" "No," I replied. "Okay. It's reconstructing what kinds of creatures would evolve under different circumstances. Maybe an amphibian would evolve to have wings like a bat, for example, if insects didn't hover around ponds. You see what I mean?" I guess. We also try to construct what animals might look like millions of years from now, or humans. What kind of things will evolve under the pressure of modern humanity, modern technology? There's already some of it happening. The bedbugs in New York City are hundreds of times more resistant to pesticides than the ones in Florida are. And deer are more skittish than they were 10 years ago because cars kept hitting them. Okay. I had no idea where she was going with this. "You haven't seen that image of what humans would look like if they were evolved to survive car crashes. The man has like no neck and lots of fat to cushion the impact." "No?" "Okay," she shook her head. "The point is, some people in this field believe that at some point, creatures would evolve abilities that mimic technology, like birds that look like drones or bats that can sense electromagnetic fields. Who's to say this thing that you and Rochelle have described hasn't evolved the ability to send out radio signals, hack our entire mobile system?" "Okay, that's ridiculous," Luke interjected. "So what, this creature is like texting, in English?" "Oh, no, nothing like that. States, local governments, they often have pre-programmed emergency messages, like a protocol for hurricanes, earthquakes, nuclear threats, etc. This thing, it just hacked a signal to send a particular protocol. Same thing with Rochelle," she said, looking sympathetically at her. "We're all sending little electromagnetic signals in our brains all the time. Neural impulses. Sharks, 400 million-year-old living fossils can detect them. These things, they can hack them. So when I saw my dad, I glanced at Luke. That thing was hacking my brain signals." Jamie nodded. Oh, it's a little more complicated than that. I believe this thing sends out a chemical in the air too, at close range that messes with some neurotransmitters. But essentially, yes. Okay, but why is the basement safe then? Because it's too big for them to get down there, Luke asked. Well, I'm glad you asked that, Jamie replied with a big, victorious smile on her face, like she was just about to tell us the secret to the universe. They chose that emergency protocol with the basement because their abilities don't work if you're underground, just how your phone reception goes out when you're underground. A heavy silence filled the room. Luke and I looked at each other. For one, this sounded pretty out there, conspiracy theory level stuff. More unbelievable than Roswell. On the other hand, nothing that I had experienced in the past 24 hours had made sense. How do you know all of this? I asked. This isn't the first time that it's happened, she replied, her face grim. Almost 10 years ago, the same thing happened out by Woodland, on the border of Wharton State Forest. I studied it then too, but there weren't as many of them. Okay, but the text didn't get sent to everyone, Luke said. Only us and Rochelle so far that we know of. Right, so these things, I call them stickmen by the way. They only target people with overactive imaginations. People who send out really clear and strong brain signals. It's easier for them to find you and it's easier for them to hack your brain. They're not actually producing the image you see of your deceased loved ones or whatever. They're just knocking it loose from your memory, from something that you've imagined. If you've imagined your kid disappearing 1,000 times because you have anxiety or OCD, that makes it all the easier for them to use it against you and lure you in. And of course, there's more for them to eat. More for them to eat. Yeah, they eat brains. I mentioned that, didn't I? More awkward, heavy, suffocating silence. Kate said that she heard the doctor saying she's going to die, he said in a soft voice. Is that true? Jamie glanced at me but stayed silent. Rochelle jumped in, her voice full of heartache. Jamie told me that if one bites you, it's linked to you. It will follow you and end you. It'll show you your worst nightmares first. Jamie interjected, absolutely unable to read the room. Show you everything you fear. But when it starts showing you yourself in these waking nightmares, that usually means you only have a day left. I swallowed a wave of nausea, and then I started getting out of the hospital bed. I needed to get out of here, away from Jamie's stare, Luke's concern, and just a moment of silence. Maybe I would get a Coke from the vending machine, not even a diet one. I hadn't had a full sugar one in ages. I tried to keep out the memory of my dad before me in my mom's basement. I had imagined him saying those exact words. When I was at my lowest point years ago, when a flicker of suicide showed itself in an ocean of postpartum depression, and that stickman or whatever has used it against me. Another wave of nausea. I pushed towards the door. Wait, Rochelle said, standing up and reaching for my arm. I'll be right back, I snapped. I made my way down the empty hospital hallway, beeping machines and echoing footsteps in the distance. Tears pricked my eyes. I kept going, making a left and then a right, following the signs for the vending machines. My feet shuffled along the ground, taking me there slowly, ever so slowly. Kate, stop. I turned to see Luke coming after me. He stopped 6 feet away, trying to give me space. I just need a minute, I replied, my voice shaky. No, it's not that. Your mom just texted me and we have to go. Grace. His voice broke, and my heart broke with it. What happened? She fell, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She's not awake. They're rushing her to the hospital. To the hospital. You mean here? They're taking her here? I asked frantically. They're taking her to the hospital, he repeated. Something twinged inside me. That doesn't make sense. That's not an answer. I looked down. No. On the floor, something black, slick and wet on the green linoleum floor. A tendril like a long umbilical cord attached to Luke's foot and leading down the hallway. I felt dizzy. The world started to tilt. Kate! I turned around to see Luke behind me, frozen, eyes wide. I looked back. The other Luke was no longer standing there. It was me. I was staring at my own face. I wish that I could say it looked different, one eye popping out, skin all blistered and pink, but it wasn't. It looked exactly like me, like looking in a mirror. I looked down. Other me was holding a pillow. She held my gaze for a second and then looked down at the floor. I followed her gaze. Grace was lying at my feet, eyes closed, hands resting neatly under her head, fast asleep. No, no. I knew this intrusive thought. I knew how it ended. It's not real, it's not real. I turned and ran back down the hallway, reaching for Luke's hand. Rustling behind me, I couldn't look back, I couldn't. Luke pulled me into the room and I followed, breathless. We have to get underground, it's here. Rochelle and Jamie looked at me, and then they looked at the floor. For a second, I thought I was going to see my worst nightmare, but instead, I looked down to see blood dripping off my arm, seeping through my shirt, traveling in wet, soaky rivulets, dripping to the floor. Jamie shot up and walked over to me. Gently, she pushed back the cloth of my shirt, exposing the wound at my shoulder. Necrotic tissue, she whispered. She shook her head sadly. It's begun. I can't die, I can't. My shoulder pulsed with pain. I continued running down the hall towards the big red exit sign. The hospital hadn't released me. Stop, Luke begged, catching up with me, but I forced myself to run faster despite the pain. I wasn't going to just sit in the hospital room and wait to die. Obviously, from what the doctor said, that's what happened to the last one. I was going to get underground. Maybe I would have to stay there forever, or until they found a way to kill these things. I would not leave Grace without a mother. I wanted more than anything to go to her, hug her, to tell her that I loved her. But maybe that thing could follow me even into a basement. I didn't think so, but I couldn't risk it. The best thing that I could do was get underground, buy time. Grace was as safe as she could be with my mom underground. I ran towards the exit. The red sign glowed brightly in the darkness of the hallway. One of the lights flickered overhead. My bare feet slapped against the floor. The floor felt sharp. I kept running, but it didn't seem like I was getting any closer to the exit sign. What the? I glanced back and Luke wasn't following me anymore, nor was Rochelle or Jamie. The hallway extended beyond me, stretching back into the darkness indefinitely. I kept running. The exit door was open now, but still so far away. A stiff breeze blew in, ruffling through my hair. It smelled of pine and wood and decay. Keep running. The ground was so rough under my feet and the air was so cold. The lights above me flickered wildly. The door didn't get any closer, no matter how fast I sprinted. A few leaves swirled by outside in the darkness. Keep running. The lights above me flickered out, and then I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was in the middle of the woods. Pine trees stretched up into the darkness. The sand littered with sharp sticks and rocks bit into the bare soles of my feet. Silence rang in my ears except for a light fluttering sound somewhere in the darkness. No, it tricked me. I wheeled around and I didn't see any lights, any break in the trees. How deep in the barrens am I? How long have I been running? The darkness closed in, suffocating me. I felt my pockets, no phone, no way to call for help, no way to know where I am. I sucked in a breath, ready to scream into the darkness, but that would draw the stickmen to me, wouldn't it? Or did it not matter? Did they already know where I was? I looked up at the stars, at the slices of sky poking through the pines. I tried to identify them. Is that Cassiopeia? But I didn't know anything about how to tell directions from the stars. Besides, the pines blocked out most of the sky anyway. No, wait, that's not the way to do this. I ran in here and my legs didn't feel that sore. Even though it must have distorted time, I had only felt like I was running for a minute. If I had run 10 miles into the Barrens, I would have known. I just needed to figure out what direction I had come from. I wheeled around trying to look for footprints, flattened vegetation, any sign of where I had come from. But it was pitch dark out and I didn't have any source of light. There was moonlight enough to see so that I didn't smack into a tree, but not enough to look for footprints in the sand. I stared at the trees, but the branches were up too high and too thin to support my weight. I couldn't climb them to get a better vantage point. I ransacked my pockets again. Nothing. And so I started off in a random direction. Sticks stabbed at my feet. Pebbles rolled underneath my toes. I kept walking forward trying to keep a straight line. The Pine Barrens is 1,000,000 acres, but an acre wasn't that many square miles. I remembered that from somewhere. I tried to focus on doing the math. If I was in the center and I walked in a random direction, how long would it take me to get to the edge? 5 hours or 10, maybe more than that. And of course I had heard the stories. Even without the stickmen, the Pine Barrens were deadly enough. Carnivorous plants, rattlesnakes, and a way of turning people around. It was easy to get lost in the infinite pines. I thought of Grace, Luke telling her that I was gone, her crying and melting down. She needed me. Maybe years ago at that low point in my life right after Grace had been born, I wouldn't have been quite so panicked at the thought of dying. But I was panicking now. I picked up the pace. Sticks stabbed at my feet harder. I tried to keep a straight line, but it was so hard in the dark. And for all I knew, I was just walking deeper and deeper into the Barrens. And then I saw it. A clearing. My heart soared. That must be where I came from. It was one of the burned areas. The fire had hollowed out a large clearing. It was lit in silver tones by the nearly full moon, no longer obscured. Some pines still stood, completely bare of needles, skeletal and black, ash black into the pale sand beneath, the color of bone. A few pine saplings poked through the destruction, only inches tall. It was deathly silent. I'm never going to get out of here. I looked up at the blackened pines stretching up to the sky like fingers. Snap. I whirled around. Someone was standing at the edge of the trees, painted in all tones of gray from the moonlight and barely visible among them. I took off into a run, but in my panic I tripped. It felt like I was in slow motion. The sandy, ashy ground rose up to meet me. Pain shot up in my arms and my shoulders screamed in pain. Sticks scraped my cheek. More snapping. I scrambled up to see myself standing there, arms hanging limply at my sides, hair grazing my shoulders. "Let me go!" I screamed. My voice echoed and died into the forest. She stepped closer. I could hear too a wet smacking sound. There was another slimy black appendage attached to her feet, controlling her like she was a puppet. She canted her head at me and her lips split into an unnatural grin. I turned and tried to run again, but an intense wave of dizziness hit me. The ground tilted. Heaviness pressed down on my head. My stomach lurched and I was vomiting, stumbling, tripping in my own puddle of vomit. "Stop," I croaked. I was lying on my back. Warm, wet vomit soaking through the back of my shirt. Twisted black appendages were filling up the corners of my vision, melting in with the twisted black pines stretching up to the sky. The stars above me looked like shooting stars moving across the sky with how dizzy I was. The sky was replaced with my own face. Her hair hung onto my face, sticking to the sweat and the vomit. Her lips curled into a smile, and then her mouth began to open, wider, wider, wider. Rows of sharp teeth like a lamprey's descending into the darkness of her throat. I tried to push it off, but my hands met slime. I was pinned by the creature, one of the stickmen. It was only her disembodied head hovering over me, attached to a tangled black mess of a creature. They eat brains. Jamie's voice echoed in my head as the teeth loomed closer, so close that I couldn't see any of the barons anymore. Grace, what's she going to do without me? She'll never recover. Her entire life will be ruined. I can't. I'm so sorry. And then I realized the stickmen were attracted to brain signals. What if I had done something that I had never done before? What if I just stopped thinking? I closed my eyes, ignored the warm, rotting breath on my face, ignored the slime seeping through my shirt, ignored thoughts of Grace. I used every last bit of my willpower to stop thinking. Nothing, a void, non-existence. A clicking sound came from above me. The creature began to shift its weight. I continued thinking about nothing, absolutely nothing. The creature pulled itself off of me. When I opened an eye, it no longer wore my head. It was twisting and turning, making clicking sounds, lifting some of its appendages in the air, as if confused, as if it thought I had escaped and it was trying to sense me out again. I lay there in the dark, burnt forest, thinking of nothing for seconds, minutes, hours. It was the hardest thing that I had ever done, pushing away thoughts of Grace, of my future, of hers, pushing it all out and being empty. When the sun began to rise, I pulled myself up. The burnt forest was bathed in the pink hues of dawn. My skin was covered in vomit and black slime. My shoulders still throbbed with pain, and there was no sign of the stickman. It took me another few hours, but in the daylight, I was able to find my way back. After walking around in circles for a while, I caught a glimpse of a road through the trees. I had apparently fled the hospital and run a half-mile into the pine barrens across the street. Luke and the hospital staff were looking for me all night. I was reunited with Grace, and it was the happiest day of my life. I think that the stickman is still linked to me. We've been spending our nights in the basement where we've been totally safe. Rochelle, Jamie, and I have been working together to figure out how to kill it for good. Some guy online from the incident 10 years ago claims that drowning them works. But for now, I am content to be home and be safe, even if it isn't forever, and a million bad things are waiting to happen. I can't remember the last time that I left the house. I do know that I ran out of my medication a few days ago, but the apathy that I was feeling just kept telling me to stay in, lock the door, and go back to bed. Not like I could afford it anyway, with no insurance to speak of and barely $10 to my name. Heck, the last grocery delivery that I got is barely hanging on, despite my depressed appetite forcing me to ration it. I had about 12 different voicemails from my mom asking why I wasn't responding, begging to know that I was still alive, but I just couldn't. It wasn't worth it because she wouldn't believe me anyway. Hell, I'm surprised she hasn't flown over here yet to drag me out. I can hear her now. You know that you're better than this, Daniel. Get up. Yeah, great motivation there. It was the voice in my head telling me that I was worthless, that it would be better for me, for everyone, if I just took myself out of the pool. It's not like I contributed much, just a struggling writer who posts horror stories on the internet. Not like it was enough to keep the lights on. Then again, I don't know if anyone would notice if I stopped paying rent in this shithole high-rise. other than the slumlord that already bled me dry like a damned vampire. He didn't even come around anymore, and knew that eviction wasn't worth the trouble. The cops didn't care about things out here, and this guy was already on their shit list. Must not have paid his dues to the police union lately. Loud discordant tones rang from my phone, sitting on the charger beside my bed. I don't even know why I bothered to keep it charged other than doom scrolling anyway. Not like anything was looking up in the world recently. I figured it was just another silver alert, some old dementia patient taking the keys when they shouldn't. My grandpa made it all the way to Mexico like that one time. Unlike his decaying brain though, mine found the idea of being outside terrifying. Just the slightest hint of stepping out of my apartment was dread-inducing, with the insane amount of things that could go wrong at every moment. Hell, just going to the grocery store can get you shot these days. Why risk it? Not the point. Check your phone. The sleep in my eyes wasn't leaving, taking every chance when I tried blinking it away, desperate to put me back under its dreamy spell. My hand darted out, limbs heavy, still not awake, and pulled my phone to my face. It wasn't even dark out, despite the blackout curtains making it look like it was the dead of night. No, the phone read 2:37 p.m., with the alert notification in full right below it. Emergency nationwide alert. All persons. Do not, under any circumstance, look at the sky. Please close all windows, doors, and any other way to view the outside world. Please shelter in place until the alert has been lifted. If you are not in an area to shelter in place, please carefully move to the nearest building with adequate shelter. Repeat, do not look at the sky under any circumstances. If you or someone near you has made this mistake, immediately administer the following emergency procedures. 1. Restrain the exposed. Rigid, stronger bonds are recommended. 2. Do not attempt to reason with the subject. They will tell you that they're unaffected. 3. Terminate the subject through dismemberment or immolation. Use both to be safe. 4. Remain hidden until this alert is lifted. The hell's going on? I mumbled, still in my half-asleep state. I'm barely through the message when a call starts coming through from my mom. God, I don't want to speak to her, but with something like that coming through, I want to think that it was a prank. Some joker hacking the system for some kicks, like Max Headroom back in the day. I don't know though, so I better at least set Mom at ease. Guess it's the best time to let her know that I'm alive. Take a deep breath and answer the phone. I hit the button, with Mom's voice coming in almost immediately, frantic and screaming. I barely make out what she's saying.
Oh my God, are you okay? Are you safe? Don't do it. Don't look out, please.
She was tripping over words and sobs started coming between.
Your father. Oh God, your father.
Mom, what the hell is happening? The sleep is shaking out with my fear spiking instead. She never sounded like this. Mom is always the tough, no-nonsense type, more likely to curse at a problem and beat it into the ground instead of walking away. I barely ever heard the woman cry, much less utter the word God without it being in Sunday school reference. Where's Dad at? What did he do?
He was outside doing yard work. You know how your dad is. Next thing I know, he's bashing at the door trying to get in. He's changing. I swear that his eyes are gone. He's practically foaming at the mouth, but it's like all his teeth are they're growing or something. They keep getting longer in his mouth and sharper. I don't know what to do. What do I do? He's trying to say something, but I can't understand the words.
The words are coming out more forced now, sobs more pronounced, and her breathing was cut short in fear. Whatever apathy that I had about talking to her before was gone, now full of fear that this may be the last time that I speak to her. Mom, you need to hide. Go in the bathroom, there's no windows or anything. Grab a phone, a charger, a knife, whatever you can. Don't look out, do you understand? Jesus, is that me talking? I haven't had this kind of command in years, and not since I burnt out around my mid-20s. Adrenaline is one hell of a drug. Mom, I need you to confirm. Do you understand me?
Yes.
She stuttered.
Winston was out there with him. He's gone.
Oh shit, their dog. Stereotypical bulldog name aside, he was a good boy. Probably got spooked about what had happened with Dad. No, I can't talk to her about that right now. Got to keep the confidence going or she'll break down completely. We'll find him later, he probably ran off.
No, he's gone. Your father has him. He's making something with the body. Like a statue or something.
She was muttering now. Mom, are you moving? Are you going to hide? I asked again, pressuring her to keep going. I need you to hide in the bathroom, the one connected to your room, okay? Lock every door on the way and keep yourself safe. Please, Mom. Glass shatters as she screams, a garbled sound coming from nearby. There's a brief thud as Mom drops the phone, making it hit the hard wooden floors of their house. I can hear Dad's raspy voice speaking with something unintelligible through a warped mouth.
He has me, please, talk to him, help.
Her sobs were punctuated by scrapes along the floor with periodic thumps, shattered glass tinkling and crunching on the ground.
No, Jeremy, please, I don't want to go out. Come and see.
A hiss was barely audible over her screams. Dad's voice. I could recognize it anywhere, even through these strange noises that he was making.
Worship with us. No, please stop. Don't make me look.
Mom's screaming pleas are cut short. Complete silence on the other line before she suddenly begins to whisper.
Praise be.
Mom, please, are you okay? I was screaming into the phone now, holding it to my face on speakerphone to try and get any attention possible. Instead, I only got silence, punctuated by the occasional scream in the distance. Nobody answered my cries. I finally hung up, knowing that nothing would come from staying on the line. My only thought was that at least I had peace of mind knowing that my parents are already gone. It's not some mystery that I'll never know the answer to, so at least there's that, I guess. Now I know it's not a prank either, something really messed up is going on. Okay, be logical. The alert said don't look at the sky. Dad was outside when it happened, so that confirms something there. Restraining them makes sense now, but destroying them? Good God, that's bad if the government is recommending it. Maybe there's something on the news. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I found the remote, flipping it to the local news on my hijacked cable. The anchorman was sitting there, worry on his face, as voices from behind the camera clamored in nervous agony. I get it, I got to hear my parents die. How many of these people have loved ones that they have no idea about? How many were there out of some sense of duty, trying to keep anyone who watched safe? We have yet to know if anything can cure the result of what's happening. What we have heard from the CDC and World Health Organization is that this is not an isolated event. This is happening worldwide, with the same symptoms presenting regardless of nationality, race, sex. Nothing is discriminatory about this. If you look at the sky, you are dead, effective immediately. If someone you know looks at the sky, immediately seek safety and isolate them. Restrain them if possible. This has a 100% infection rate and will not pick and choose who receives its horror. We hope to have a representative from the CDC on soon to speak. He was stammering, barely keeping it together. The phone ringing nearly made him jump from his chair, the sweat on his brow drenching his perfectly groomed hair. Well, yes, that seems to be them now. Professor Sigurd. Yes, this is Professor Sigurd. Please, if you're listening, we beg you to not go outside. Don't look out your windows, don't do anything that could expose you to a clear view of the sky. Something is changing, people. He was frantic, terror in his voice, but also menace. He knew something that the rest of us didn't yet. Please, if somebody you know is exposed, isolate and restrain them. They will try to expose you as well in any way possible. Explains what my dad did, I guess. The professor kept going though. The only thing that affected beings want to do is reinforce their numbers. They'll do it through any means, even working together. The only thing that we know is that they speak of worship for whatever they see. He continued on. I'm sorry, Professor, can I ask a question? The anchorman said, holding a hand up like he was commanding the caller to stop. What the hell is up there? Well, as of now, we still don't know. We're attempting to see how we can view it without causing an infection. It's a drawn-out process of trial and error. He replies, shaking in his voice. It's currently unknown, though we have tried to see it through cameras and other means, but nothing comes up. It's like filming a clear sky. So recordings of the phenomena will not cause infection. The anchorman tries to clarify, a look of relief spreading across the nervous lines drawn taut on his face. We have only tried digital recordings, but yes, the infection will not take hold when viewed through recorded video. That said, we have yet to commence live viewing, only trying pre-recorded as of now. Please use discernment and do not try anything that could expose yourself or others. Still rambling on, he sounded more panicked than before though. Something else was creeping in. I want to stress, and I feel that I cannot do it enough, to stay hidden from any of these things. They are no longer your loved ones. They are no longer the people you know, worked with, or grew up with. They are monsters, plain and simple. I turned it off. Not like I had planned to go outside anytime soon anyway. So no worries about looking at the sky for me. Now just to lock the doors and wait for things to blow over. Mom's screams keep bursting through my mind though, making me jump as if she were right next to me, shrieking for her life as Dad drags her away. It all felt so real that I just had to try. Picking up my phone and letting out a deep sigh, I called her number. Ringing. The steady and consistent dial tone sound as I waited for her was torture. I knew she wasn't going to pick up, so why the hell was I doing this? It's only going to go to voicemail, and then I have to hear her sounding happy. But the screen changed, video popping up as she answered a video call. The ceiling was visible only, their fan spinning lazily above, a spatter of red on one blade still dripping down steadily. I was holding my breath without realizing it, but whatever air was still in my lungs began hissing out slowly as I whispered, hoping against whatever terror was causing this. Mom? Mom, is that you?
Come and see.
A whisper barely audible over the phone speaker. Suddenly the screen is hectic, something picking up the phone and flailing around the room. Moments of chaos pass, finally settling on a face. What remains of a face at least. It was definitely Mom, or was at one time, but now the entire upper half of her face was gone. Like physically there was still the space, but the skin where her eyes and nose once were was gouged out, scraped raw to expose the bone and muscle in her skin underneath. Her eyes were totally gone, nose cut off at the base, yet I could still feel her staring at me.
Come and see.
She whispered again. No, this wasn't right. This wasn't my mother. This wasn't anything how she could be. There's no reason for any of this.
Come and see. Worship with us. The seal is broken.
I didn't even realize that I was practically smacking the shit out of my phone screen, shaking hands and doing my best to hit the dang cancel button for the call. The red button finally connected, the disconnect tone hitting right as Mom began to turn the phone screen away from herself. The open door flashing before me as it began to reveal the open sky. My eyes clenched shut as I tossed the phone away, praying for it to end. Why did I try that? I should have known. I should have known that it was going to end badly. Jesus, what's happening out there? I got my answer almost immediately. A loud explosion shaking the building, causing windows to rattle. Whatever had exploded, it was close. Screams coming from outside that could be heard even up here on the 15th floor. Another loud boom shook me again, this time feeling even closer. close enough that the window in my bedroom shattered, bringing the noise outside in, screams echoing from below. Good God, what is going on out there? I could hear nothing but screams and chaos coming from below. The Atlanta streets in a frenzy, violence ringing through the air. People begging for their lives, pleading for their loved ones, all punctuated by that same phrase, "Come and see." As much as I don't want to, there might be something useful on TV, if it's still active. The screen came on, same channel as before, but the anchorman was now replaced by a woman. A small crying at the bottom of the screen reading out a new message. Martial law. All emergency services are suspended. That was fast. It had only been, 15 minutes? Honestly, time is a foreign concept right now. I threw my phone somewhere under the couch while I was trying to get away from Mom, so no telling what it was. The television didn't have the time either, just more warnings coming across the screen. Those same instructions to dismember or kill anyone affected by the thing in the sky. We're going to go live to Devin outside. The new woman on TV was stammering out, looking around nervously like she had no idea what to do. He's volunteered. Yeah, that's it. He's volunteered to go outside and film the sky for us live to see what's up there. 1 second, we'll switch to his feed. The screen cut out to the anchorman from before, now screaming and red-faced as others were dragging him somewhere. He was fighting back, but it was basically useless against the number of people around him. Whoever was recording was following right alongside, saying nothing while some messed up film was about to go down. The pale fluorescence around them made the beige hallway seem like the most mundane corridor to hell that there could be. Finally, they had reached a heavy metal door with the group setting Devin down and pushing his back against it. The camera was shoved into his hands, changing POV to show the scared man who was previously recording. Before Devin could beg for mercy, they pushed him backward through the door, the camera falling with a thud next to him on the ground. They slammed the door shut as Devin's sobbing and bleeding face is captured for the world to see, still lying on the concrete. Please, I just want to go to my family, please. He was choking out between pained sobs. Liza, please be safe. I'll be there soon. I didn't realize until the screen began to blur, but I was crying now. Jesus, I felt empty for so long that I almost forgot what it was like. Between seeing my own family and hearing what's on the streets, can't say that I didn't feel for the guy. Hell on earth, but he probably has no idea where his family is. I was almost rooting for him like I was watching some underdog at the Olympics when he left the camera behind, keeping his head down and running fast. There is a small car parallel parked right down the street. I'm guessing that it's his because he dug keys from his pocket before jumping in. Car starting with a jump before it was swarmed on all sides. People. No, the blood all over their faces said otherwise. Monsters. That idiot. A woman's voice cut in, feed switching back over to the studio news desk. The woman was beating her fist on the table, anger overflowing in her voice. Oh, sorry folks, technical difficulties. We'll be right back. The screen flashed out instead, taken over by the emergency alert system, same as before. The people down at the station must have lost the battle with their own sanity, turning on each other, not surprising. It took me a few minutes of searching and grasping blindly under the couch, but I finally found my phone again. There was a missed call from Mom. I'm assuming just to try again for her original goal, but I know what she is now. I'm not risking that. Let's see if there is anything else out there though. Twitter was a cesspool as usual, with plenty of conspiracies floating around. Reddit wasn't too much better, some claiming that it was the end of the world while others said it was some Russian attack. Meanwhile, everything around the world was going through the same nightmare. People turning into monsters outside our doors, but were arguing on the internet about who's behind it. Nobody even knew what the heck it was. all of this complaining, all of this blame being thrown around, and nobody can even know because just looking up is enough to turn you into one of those things. The worst part is that it doesn't show up in photographs or videos, not digital anyway. There was talk of trying analog recording methods, a lot of discussion about how digital can't capture it because of cybernetic cloaking or some shit like that. There's no telling what's truth and what's not at this point. The analog idea got me thinking though, God, where is that thing? I ran to the closet to throw open boxes still packed from moving over 2 years ago, desperately searching. Finally I found it, my old Polaroid that Dad got me for Christmas one year. This thing was vintage and he found it in great condition. I double checked it was good to go, grabbing a pack of photos for it and loading them in. Camera open, the daylight seeping in from cracks under the window. I tested it out. The shutter gave a mechanical hiss, bulb flashing bright against the relatively dark room, and a small picture zipped right out of the camera's front. Alright, take it out, flap it around for a second, and good. My tiny studio apartment was all there, caught on grainy film against the backdrop. In a world that wasn't ending, this would be the cover of a Midwest emo album. Alright, step up. Don't look up, just put the camera through the window and press the shutter. Don't even think about it. But thinking about it was the only thing I could do. Okay, start slow instead. 2 hands nervously reaching from this side of the curtains while turning my head as far as I could, trying to hold the bulky camera steady enough to snap the picture. I didn't even know if it would get a picture. Angle it toward the ground now, okay, and click. I could hear the bulb hiss, that same shutter sound before I yanked it back in, looking with fear at the undeveloped photo jutting out from the slot. Pick it up and give it a wave. Color began to fade in slowly, revealing the lush greens and browns of trees below in the Atlanta fall. Around the street, though, was a bloodbath straight from a horror movie. These things were just grabbing people, horror on their faces as they were dragged from homes and businesses, all being forced to open their eyes, looking up at the bright, cloudless sky above. Even in the grainy photo, I could still catch the fear in those people's eyes, some seeing their final moments against their will. Others were right in the midst of their own agony, gouging their eyes out with fingers, scratching any semblance of sight from their face with whatever they could find. I dropped the photo upon noticing a child with what looked like a shard of broken mirror from a nearby car, readying it in front of his left eye for something that I knew wasn't going to be good. Hell, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to try seeing what's in the sky. What if I can do something good though? Maybe contribute something good. Solve a part of this big, messed up mystery of a situation. I can try, right? Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Stick the camera through the curtains again and keep it steady. There weren't any taller buildings than mine nearby. The city is starting to level out into suburbs just outside of my window. This is it. A clear shot of the sky beyond, but will it work? Will it turn me into one of them? I mean, hell, I'm probably dead at this point. Still too scared to leave my apartment at the end of the world. Still worried about eviction or paying bills like there's even going to be a tomorrow. My finger clicks the shutter, that same bulb flash and hiss as it imprinted outside onto the film. Deep and steady, careful not to bump the photo as I bring it back in, making sure to keep looking away from the crack in the curtains, the world outside going straight to hell. I got it. I got the photo. Now just to give it a little exposure so that it develops. Jesus Christ. I see it. Clear as day, I see it. It's showing up on the Polaroid, this giant. It looked like a man up top, riding a horse like he was heading into battle. The horse was beyond dead though, skin and nerves flayed, exposing the dark red bloody muscle underneath. It was in motion as it was captured on the grimy photo, legs mid-pump, propelling itself toward Earth. No telling how big the damn thing was, but it was larger than the sun in the sky, threatening to blot it out at any moment as it cast a shadow over the world beyond. The rider was even more terrifying than the skinless horse, a charred, barely hanging on body with missing limbs. The foot was barely attached, jostling alongside the horse. Meanwhile, the face had its eyes gouged out, much like those below, but it looked like his wounds were cauterized, terrible burns marking the top of his visage as his jaw hung open, one side dangling down further in a lopsided grin. I wanted to throw up, wanted to scream and open the window wide to show myself that it wasn't real. I could hear something nagging at the back of my mind the entire time, a guttural, whispered voice struggling to speak through a destroyed throat. Come and see. Everything else in my head was screaming, telling me not to listen to that thing. It sounds so welcoming though, to look to the sky and let all my worries go to see the giant figure on the red horse. No, I can't let go now. I actually did something. I got some kind of answer right. I did something good. Who am I even asking at this point other than the voices in my head? At least some are telling me to live. It's better than most days. A scream pierced the air from outside, waking me out of the trance that I had been in. Hand reached out to the curtain in front of me to pull it back. No, can't do that. I pulled my hand back fast, like touching a still hot pan on the stove, dropping the Polaroid in the process. From lower down, the scream quickly died out, joining the now steady whispers growing loud enough to hear even this high up, all beginning to sink in their strange beckoning. Come and see. They must have gone through most of these street-level buildings already, which means they'll probably move up here soon. I can at least get the picture on the internet. Maybe someone can do something with it. A tweet, a Reddit post, anything. Hell, I'll put it up on TikTok if it gets the attention that could help someone. It only took moments after I had snapped a picture of the Polaroid to post it, and not long after that for comments to start flooding in. Hey, stop spreading disinformation. Cool picture, who drew it? Nice Photoshop, jackass, but the world is ending. I told you all to repent. Standard run-of-the-mill BS, of course, nobody would believe it. Why believe the insanity happening right outside your window when you can make up stuff on the internet? Jesus Christ, I might jump off the roof before I even get a chance to look at the thing. The flood of notifications started to make me just want to end it all, knowing that there wasn't going to be any help for anyone in this shitstorm of death. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." Oh, you've got to be kidding me. As many Sunday school lessons and church sermons that I've been dragged to in my life, all the Southern evangelical hellfire that I've heard, there's no way. It fit though. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, except this is the second one. Jesus, what was the first? The pale horse, I think. No idea where he is, but the second was the red horse. The one that was always brought up in sermons about the end times. Endless war and bloodshed to really bring everything together. We really, truly are screwed, I guess. A crash from below takes me out of my focus, remembering millions of Bible verses that I had to study back in school despite how bored I was. Hell, Revelations was one of the few that held my attention for longer than a second. The whole thing was like a metal album on the most hardcore hallucinogens possible. Seeing it firsthand is much more terrifying. It's the end of the world outside. A bloody horse and an undead rider are hurtling through the sky, and I feel whelmed. Maybe it's just the lack of meds in my brain deciding that it's not the worst thing that could happen, but the end of the world feels like a damned relief. Or at least it did until the noises started going downstairs. Crashes at first, mixed in with some of the few sporadic screams left in the streets. And then it started getting even closer though, working from the street through the thin walls of my building. Screams below my feet outside my door. They were finally coming after us. My phone let out a loud siren again, another alert coming through during the chaos. I looked down, seeing if there was any message for safety, shelter, an answer to any of this. Come and see. That was it. The emergency alert was just the same thing. Everything's over. I don't know what to do. I'm safe in here, I think. I don't want to risk opening my door because they might come in here. No, stay here, stay in safety, don't look outside. Come and see. A voice, but not from the streets below me or even outside my door. It sounded clear enough to be right in my ear, standing right beside me, pushing me to go look. Why not, right? I had already seen the picture, not like looking at the actual thing could break me much at this point, right? No, I have to figure a way out. Don't think about looking at the dang thing. Just get out and try to find shelter elsewhere. The basement. There's a basement level that has sewer access, I think. Can't see the sky if I'm underground. Can't get exposed by those things if there's nothing to make me look at it. It's perfect. There's no rhyme or reason to it. My BPD brain just suddenly said, "You can get out of here." And next thing I know, I'm just rolling with it. The energy is here, so I'm not letting go. I don't want to die as much as I'm okay with the world ending. A knife, a flashlight that barely works. Wasn't much to choose from in my empty apartment. I have to give myself some credit. At least I wasn't a hoarder. It took all of 5 minutes to get ready and then 1 minute for all my hopes to get to the basement to fly right out the window. Noises grew louder, the screams advancing up the building along with something new. The smell of smoke. Oh shit, is all that I can whisper shout to myself as things get worse. I brace myself standing in front of the apartment door, eyes closed tight, praying to whatever God would send this hell to us that they weren't going to be right outside just yet. Reach for the knob, get ready to turn, fling, and run. Jesus, the knob was hot and the fire was already close outside. There might not be any way down, they're probably trying to flush us out. I grabbed a towel off the bathroom sink, wrapping it around the knob this time and pushing it open. Flames were already lighting up the dingy hallway, lights flickering out as fire tore through the electrical system. Whatever fire safety system that they had in the building wasn't doing anything. An alarm ringing without any sort of sprinkler even attempting to help. Smoke was rising high, covering the ceiling before the flames could take it first. Only time was keeping it from burning. Alright, change of plans, run the other way. The stairs are on the other end of the hallway with only hopes guiding me to see if they would still get me down to ground level. Bursting through the emergency door was like hitting a wall of heat. Fire already rising up from the ground floor under the winding stairs below. No way down, only up. Screams echo behind me from the hallway. Creatures running through to pull out flaming bodies, tossing them from windows to see the sky outside. There's nothing that could get me back there. These damned things are already swarming this floor in droves to take more for their own. No, this was it. Face them or burn below. Neither are any kind of fun way out. Hell, both are going to be painful, and I would rather not do any form of pain. Come and see, come and see. One of the things was practically chanting with glee back in the hallway. Maybe it was better if I took myself out, not give them the chance to get a new recruit. The knife in my hand could probably get right through my neck easily. Maybe if I went through the ear, it would keep me down. My only worry is that they'll get to me before I can actually die. No, the knife wouldn't work worth a damn. The only other option is up there. The stairs above me were clear of any flames, just smoke rising slowly to build up above. There was a roof access door up there. Usually it's where the teenagers would go to smoke without getting caught, but it would make a good place for a final bow. 26 floors and I'm on 15. I better start running. Except before I can get moving, one of them sees me. Its screams running for me in a frenzy while still repeating the same verse fragment. Come and see, come and see. It was in my head at this point too, screaming on the outside and the inside. There's no escaping it. As soon as it began after me, more joined, running from rooms on the opposite end of the hall, pouring toward me in a chorus of the damned. Down below, more ran up the stairs, flame covering their bodies like living funeral pyres, all coming to attend my wake. No time to hesitate now, I guess. The stairs were taken two at a time for the next 5 floors at least, but that was about when I started feeling how out of shape I was. The adrenaline was going wild, but my lungs were burning. Floors above were no better than mine, with creatures already starting to flush through from the roof down. I wouldn't be surprised if there were people up there when everything went to shit, considering it was easier than smoking on the street for most people. Rising flames kept anyone from escaping though, leaving them to either jump to their deaths or be forced to look outside by the demons. The air was getting thin up here as the smoke continued rising, making me cough through labored breathing. Floor 22 now, screams echoing behind me as the same creature that saw me initially kept following. Maybe it's some sort of hive mind that they have, because this thing was forming a whole group to run after me, just a couple of flights of stairs behind. Some of them were on fire, spreading the blaze around to others as they packed in tight on the narrow steps. They didn't stop though, all frothing past each other to get at me. Keep climbing, keep climbing, keep climbing. Gritting my teeth and taking the deepest breath that I could finally do, it got me to the roof access. A huge red door with an emergency light blaring above it, loud buzzing from the fire alarm letting everybody know that the world was screwed. The damn thing was already swinging open and closed hard, wind outside fighting with hot, flaming air inside to see who would win. Come and see, worship with us for the time is near. So many voices down below on the stairs, all screaming out in the same terrifying rumble, eyeless faces smiling up at me in bliss. They weren't afraid, weren't driven by any kind of hunger or goal. They were just happy. It's these same looks that I would see in the adults during church services, those same smiles of being assured in their place in the world, even after they had stepped out of that building and acted like a whole different person than they claimed. That same fake smile stayed though, making the damaged half of their face look even more terrifying in contrast. The chorus of hell continued as I ran out of time to open the door. They were almost upon me when I finally got up the nerve, walking close and closing my eyes before stepping out. I can visualize the entire roof in my mind after being up here so much. Straight ahead is the AC unit for the building. To my right is another, shorter building that could interrupt my fall. My left was the best destination. Over the side, right down onto the paved street below, still proudly teeming with these terrors. I don't have a choice. The voices grew louder behind me, screaming, "Come and see!" So loud that it began to make my ear buzz with static, deafening its power. Run, run, keep running. It's all that I can do to keep moving, but I eventually hit the edge, barely stopping myself from falling right over. Stop for a moment and make sure you do this right. Climb up, take a stand, don't face the road though. No, if I see what's below, it's going to make me stop. Don't stop, I can't stop. I have to end this myself before they can end me. With my feet on the concrete edge, the wind beginning to hit me hard, almost knocking me off balance and into the pavement below. I opened my eyes to see the creatures pouring out of the access door running behind me. I stepped back, falling backward to face the sky above, losing any stability and giving myself to gravity. Come and see. The voices rang out again. The sun was bright, but in the moment I fell back to the ground with nothing but the high sky above me. Their words echoed louder, and I saw, finally I saw, while a loud and thunderous chorus all combined into one singular voice, ringing out once more. Come and see. I beheld a red horse galloping through the sky with immense speed, War sat upon him, a massive sword held in frail, decaying hands, slicing the air as more and more on Earth cut each other down, brother killing brother. My last sight before gravity turned me on my head was the horse, his eyes burning bright with the heat of the sun, pure hatred burning in its face. As my body turned, seeing the creature began to make me feel at peace. This was our fate, but was it a bad fate? The Messiah will be here soon, and the horseman is just bringing his good news. War will be a blight on the earth no more, with no humans left to foster aggression toward one another. Now we would all come together in worship, spreading the good news of what's to come by opening the eyes of others. My eyes are open now, though these eyes cannot yet comprehend the beauty of what I've seen. No, I'll need to open up my real eyes, the ones underneath these, and then I'll be able to see the true beauty of what's to come, the true salvation all this bloodshed will bring, the coming of a new kingdom built on the bodies of the damned. The last fading thought that I have is the same phrase that brought me terror just moments before. My lips part, pushing words out in a whisper against wind trying to rip them through my throat. 3 final words before the pavement meets my head. The old me's plan working perfectly as I hit skull first, spilling my brain over the concrete. My lips still manage to finish the final word though, twitching as the rest of my body falls to the ground. Come and see. My name is Paul Mathers, and I'm an amateur historian. I'm a 28-year-old loser with nothing better to do than research topics that interest me. I do the historian thing as a hobby on weekends and whenever I can scrounge up enough PTO from my soul-sucking office job. I know that sounds boring, and sometimes it is, but I delve into the stranger side of the world. I've documented the Alaskan fishman, the swamp children of the Mississippi, and the frog boy of Fargo, just to name a few. Most of my exploits have turned out to be hoaxes, but every once in a while I uncover something truly disturbing, something that makes me question my entire existence. That's exactly what I found in a small town in West Virginia. What I saw there has put an end to my research expeditions for good. I had gone down a rabbit hole on peculiar weather phenomena when I happened across it. A blog post with only 3 likes. The title read, "Whatever you do, stay away from Salt Lake, West Virginia. The storms are deadlier than you think." My curiosity was instantly piqued. The article continued on to mention a type of storm that only occurred in a single, isolated West Virginia community. The author claimed that these storms only happened during the day, that they would blot out the sun and leave the entire town in pitch-black darkness. I had to know more. I searched for other traces of the storms, diving into old articles and internet forums. I found 2 more eyewitness accounts, one from 1986 and the second from 2004. Both corroborated the first article, and one made a bold claim. People go missing during the storms. To my surprise, the posters seemed to be correct. Dozens of people have gone missing from that town throughout the decades, and according to reports, almost all of them were last seen before a storm. My mind was made up. I had to see it for myself. I took an entire week off from work to make the trip. West Virginia was a good 8 hours by car, but that didn't stop me. I made the drive to Salt Lake the next chance that I got. I was nervous about going from the start. Salt Lake's only motel had been shut down decades ago, and the next closest one was an hour and a half away. I wasn't looking forward to the prospect of sleeping in my car, but it wouldn't be the first time that I would have to camp out in a parking lot. It was nearly 5 o'clock by the time that I arrived. Once I had found suitable parking, I instantly made a beeline for the one place that I've always had luck gathering information from: the town bar. The Silver Stallion Bar and Grill resembled something out of a 1920s Western. It had a rustic feel to it that seemed on par for a small community left behind by the 21st century. Despite the fact that there was plenty of time left in the day, the bar was lively. The second that I walked in, all eyes gravitated toward me. Blue-collared men, most with grizzled beards and hard expressions, stared at me as I made my way across the room. My travels have taken me to a lot of strange places over the years, but I have never felt more unwelcome than I did in that little bar in West Virginia. I claimed a bar stool beside an old man with a scraggly beard and overalls. He tossed me a glare before turning his attention back to his beer. What can I get ya?" the bartender said, giving me a stink eye while stroking his handlebar mustache. "I'll have a Bud Light." The guy beside me snickered. "Ain't got none of that," the bartender said. Fine, then I'll get a Miller." "Ain't got none of that either." "Alright, surprise me, I'll take one of whatever's on tap." The bartender shot me a scowl as he poured me a mystery beer and slid it across the bar. Thanks. By the way, as I'm sure you can tell, I'm not from here. I was hoping to gather some info on a topic that I'm researching for, school." The bartender raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah, and what might that be?" "The storms." The moment the words left my lips, the entire bar fell silent. All eyes were on me. It was so quiet that you could hear a pen drop. Sweat beaded atop my brow. This felt wrong. The hostile bartender, the townsfolk, all of it. I got the sudden urge to drive off anywhere but there. The old man beside me broke the silence. "You need to take my advice, son. Leave. Get in your car and don't come back. Forget all about this place." I pursed my lips. 8 hours down the drain. I finished my beer, placed a 20 on the counter, and got up to leave. People whispered, shooting me odd glances as I made my exit. I was halfway to my car, ready to cut my losses and determine my next move when a voice called out from behind me. "Hey, wait up." I turned to find a man around my age trotting up to me. He had a kinder face than his kinsfolk. His blue eyes and creaseless brow contained little of the grit that most of the other patrons exhibited. "I overheard your conversation back there, about the storms. It's always been a touchy subject around here, but don't listen to that old coot. This town's got a dark past. I think it's high time for the world to know what's been going on here." A smile nipped at the corners of my mouth. This was it. The lucky break that I needed. "Hey, I appreciate you helping me out, I really do. What's your name?" "Josiah Parrish, at your service. And you are?" "My name's Paul, and nice to meet you." I extended a hand. Josiah accepted. I could tell by his grip that he was stronger than he looked. "Alright, where should we start?" "Lead the way, my good sir," I said, offering a little bow. And Josiah laughed. "You're strange, and I like that. The library will close in about half an hour. Let's start there." As Josiah and I strolled down the street, I noticed people staring. Their eyes lingered on me, unafraid of being noticed. So what's with this place? It feels like everyone around here is pretty hostile towards outsiders. Oh, they're not bad people, they're just not used to getting visitors. We're so far out of the way that nobody really has a good reason for coming here. That makes sense, I guess. And Josiah's response did little to dispel the sense of dread gnawing at my insides. So tell me, I said, trying to avoid making eye contact with the prying eyes watching us from around every corner. What do you know about these storms? Personally, not much. They don't happen often, but when they do, you'll think the world is ending. The sky goes black as sirens blare all around you, and then this cloud takes over the whole town. It's pretty scary stuff. Have you been around for one? He took a deep breath. Yeah, a few. They only happen during the day. One second it's all sunshine and rainbows, and the next, pitch black darkness. It's kinda hard to miss. Wow, that sounds terrifying, and what about? I trailed off, trying to find a string of words that wouldn't paint me as being insensitive. The missing, Josiah said, avoiding eye contact. Well, yeah. I don't know why it takes people, but I have a feeling that someone does. Anyway, here we are, the town library. The building didn't look out of place from any of the neighboring structures. Worn brick and peeling paint decorated the exterior. It was as if the whole town was a relic, somewhere that time forgot. Ladies first, Josiah said, extending a hand. What are you looking at me for? He cracked a smile. He held the door for me to enter. I sighed. With little other choice, I walked into the library. The instant that I stepped inside, my nostrils were assaulted by the musty odor of mildew. I peered across the vast rows of bookshelves. Most were coated in a layer of dust. It doesn't look like this place gets much love, I said as the door shut behind us. Shh, don't let Shayla hear you say that. Believe it or not, she's put a lot of work into the library's upkeep. Whoops, my bad, I whispered, praying that I hadn't been too loud. Josiah and I stepped up to the counter. A rusty bell lay atop it. He rang the bell a couple of times, and before I knew it, a woman came bustling out from the back room. Oh, hey, Joe, nice to see ya. Who's your friend here? The woman was pretty. Strawberry blonde hair fell to her shoulders in waves, and her figure wasn't bad either. She glared at me from behind a pair of horn-rimmed glasses, her piercing green eyes studying me like I was some kind of alien creature. Oh, the pleasure's all mine, Shayla. You're looking stunning as always, if I might add. Shayla crossed her arms. Oh, flattery won't get you anywhere, Josiah. Hey, I'm just telling it like it is. Anyway, this is Paul. He's writing a research paper on storms. He was hoping to read up on the black cloud phenomenon. Shayla eyed Josiah, as if determining whether or not to trust him. Ultimately, she uncrossed her arms and her glare softened. I'll be right back. And the instant that she disappeared, Josiah turned to me. A total bombshell, right? She says my words don't work on her, but I know what makes her happy. I smiled. Yeah, man, she's a real looker. Hope it works out for you. As Shayla returned moments later, she had 2 books in her hands. This is all we have, and do you want them or not? One was titled The World's Strangest Weather, The Hidden Side of Storms. The other was an untitled diary. Josiah retrieved his library card from his pocket and he handed it over. We'll take him, sweetheart, he said with a wink. Shayla glanced from Josiah to me and then back to Josiah. Joe, I'm trusting you not to lose these. I'll charge you double the going rate if they're past due. He puffed out his lower lip. Oh, come on, Shayla, do you really have that little faith in me? Yes, and you, she said, directing her attention to me. Make sure he brings these back. Yes, ma'am. Shayla locked eyes with me. I gulped. Her stare lingered for a moment too long before she scanned the books and took the library card. I mean it, Joe. Lose these and I'll have your hat. Josiah sighed. Yeah, I get it. I'll be dead with a double D if I don't get your precious books back to you. Good. Now off you go. I've got plenty of work to take care of. Josiah blew her a kiss. See you later, gorgeous. She rolled her eyes. It was getting dark by the time that Josiah and I exited the library. The sun had yet to dip below the horizon and the sky was painted with splashes of orange and pink. The town looked so serene in the dying light. So how long have you two known each other? She seems pleasant. Oh, since childhood. I've always had a crush on her. She'll never give me a chance, but a guy can dream, right? A smile inched across my lips. The more I learned about the town, the less frightening it seemed. I was starting to think that maybe this wasn't such a waste of time. Until we made it back to my car. I saw it from feet away. Oh, what the hell? I shouted, trotting over to my vehicle. My passenger side window had been shattered and all 4 tires had been slashed. I could tell that somebody had been rummaging through my things too. Oh, this can't be happening, I said, pacing back and forth. I thought these people wanted me to leave. Why would somebody do this? Josiah shook his head. He wore a grim expression. Oh, who knows? Best to call the sheriff and let him handle it. I followed Josiah's advice and placed a phone call to the cops. It was dark by the time a squad car arrived. Oh, hey there, Joe, the officer said once he had gotten out of his vehicle. Hey, Dale. Hey, it's Jenkins to you. Hey, Jenkins to you. Officer Jenkins scowled at Josiah. Enough of the funny business. Who's the vehicle registered to? Me, sir, I said, presenting my ID. He gave my license the once over before handing it back to me. Paul Mathers, eh? What are you in town for, boy? Visiting. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? My heart raced like a piston. Jenkins to you stared at me for a second too long before producing a notebook. Fine, I'll file a report. You should make accommodations if you haven't already. You won't be going anywhere tonight. A sickening realization hit me like a punch to the gut. With my car window smashed, I didn't have anywhere to sleep. Man, you can stay at my place. I don't mind hosting, Josiah said. A wave of relief washed over me. You're a lifesaver, man. I owe you one. Don't mention it. And grab your stuff and join me when you're ready. And Josiah's house was cozy. It was small but nicely furnished for a guy his age. Cool place you got, I said as he handed me a glass. The fire that he had stoked provided the only light in the room. It cast shadows along the walls that made me feel uneasy. Thanks, it belonged to my parents. And Josiah poured himself a shot of whiskey before contemplating and ultimately making it a double. He downed the entire thing in one go. I followed suit and grimaced. Josiah remained unfazed. Mom died when I was little. She was sick for a long time. And Dad, well, he went to meet her a few years back. I'm sorry, that's awful. He waved a hand. They're in a better place now. At least that's what I tell myself. He took another shot of whiskey before offering me the bottle. I was already feeling a buzz coming on and I declined his offer. Josiah stared into the fire. His face hardened. Paul, are you sure you want to find the answers that you're looking for? These storms, they're not anything to joke about. I bit my lip. Yeah, I've come this far. Now that I know they're real, I need to know more. And so be it. And don't be surprised if you walk away with more questions than you started with. And Josiah and I called it a night soon thereafter. I sat up what little I had in his guest bedroom and fell asleep with difficulty. Though Josiah was welcoming, I got the distinct feeling that I didn't belong there. The feeling that if I stayed, something awful was bound to happen. I awoke in the middle of the night. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I must have dozed off at some point. I rolled over, trying to get comfortable again. I was just about to close my eyes when I noticed something in my periphery. The door was cracked open, and I could see an eye staring at me through the slit. Before I could react, the door slammed shut. I heard feet padding down the hallway over the sound of my pounding heart. After a moment, I released the breath that was hitched in my throat. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep that night. I awoke the next morning to find Josiah in the kitchen preparing breakfast. He hummed a tune and tapped his foot as he scrambled some eggs, acting like the previous night had never happened. "Morning," I said, rubbing my eyes. "Morning. Geez, you look rough. Couldn't sleep?" No, not with someone's eyeball staring at me." Josiah's brows furrowed. He went rigid. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I saw somebody staring at me last night. They were peeking at me through the door." He turned back to his eggs. "Oh, sorry. I was probably sleepwalking again. It happens sometimes." He gave a stiff laugh without making eye contact with me. Somehow I doubted that. But Josiah was my host. As far as I knew, I had no reason to point fingers. "Sorry," I said, taking a seat at the table. "I wasn't trying to accuse you of anything. I'm grateful, actually. I doubt anybody else would have opened up their home to a stranger like this." His face melted back into a grin, and with that, the tension had dissipated from the atmosphere. "Oh, all good. Now I hope you're hungry because breakfast is ready." As we ate and made conversation, I couldn't help but get the feeling that Josiah was hiding something from me. Something important. All I could do was push the feeling aside and act like nothing was amiss. After breakfast, Josiah took me back into town. "Here we are," he said, pointing to the auto shop. "I've got some errands to run. I'll meet you back in the square later." I readjusted the library books under my arm. I glanced at the dingy mechanic shop and then turned to Josiah. "Yeah, sure, see you then." The guy working the counter didn't look pleased to see me. He wore a permanent scowl that sent a shiver down my spine. "Hey, I need new tires," I said, trying to subdue the quiver in my voice. "I know." You know?" "Yep." "I'm afraid to ask, but how do you know that?" Josiah messaged me last night. Said you're in a spot of trouble." He was right, but what do you need me to do, I squinted at the name stitched into his uniform. "Gary." "Well, I need you to pay first." I sighed. "All right," I said, producing my debit card. "What's the damage?" I died a little when I saw the charge come up on the screen. Though it might hurt my soul to watch the money leave my account, I paid the man for his services. Thank you much," Gary said, smiling once the payment had cleared. "I'll leave the car out in front of the shop in a couple hours. You can stop in for the key once it's ready." "All right," I said, handing in my key fob. "I'll be back in 2 hours on the dot." I decided to kill the remaining time that I had by reading the books that Josiah had checked out for me. Part of me wanted to explore the town, but the persistent stares and odd glances from the townsfolk convinced me otherwise. Naturally, I went to one of the only places that I knew I could escape their prying eyes: the library. Just like the previous day, the library was deserted aside from one resident. "Oh, you're back already?" Shayla asked without looking up. "Yeah, Josiah's busy. I needed somewhere quiet to read." Oh, you've come to the right place then. Tables are that way. I followed her directions and found the least dusty table that I could. Which wasn't saying much, and they were all coated in a thin layer of film. I saved the diary for last. The book started with the history of the town and its inhabitants, and then it delved into the storms themselves. It went on to corroborate exactly what Josiah had told me. Black skies and dark clouds always in the middle of the day. But then I got to the part that really intrigued me. The missing people. As I continued to read, I came across a segment that nearly made my heart stop. The most recent tragedy. As of this publication, the last known resident to be taken by the storm is 53-year-old Matthew Parrish. He was last seen on October 5th, 2021. If anybody knows of his whereabouts, you are encouraged to call the local authorities. I froze. Josiah's last name was Parrish. I studied the man's picture. His hazel eyes, the shape of his nose, the curve of his lips. There was no mistaking it. This was Josiah's father. He knew that I was searching for answers on the storm. He had opened up to me about his parents the night before. So why hadn't he told me that his father was a victim? I shrugged it off. Maybe it was too painful for him. He did seem pretty emotional after all. I decided to give the book a rest and move on to the diary. It was leather-bound with old, yellowing pages. I turned to the first entry and began to read. December 4th, 1975. My therapist says that it might be nice for me to start a journal to help cope with Sarah's loss. I don't really want to do this, but I don't see any harm in it. Sarah was the best of us. Pretty, smart, funny, and not to mention the fact that she could drink anybody under the table. I love that woman with all my heart. She was my world. But then the storm came. A sheet of black darker than I've ever seen. The sirens sounding, the wind blowing everywhere. It was chaos. I travel for work. Dad moved here to be closer to a lifelong friend after Mom had passed in '62. And in turn, I moved here to be closer to him. Point is, I didn't grow up around these parts. Due to the nature of my job, I had never seen one of these calamities with my own eyes. And I pray that I never see another. I told Sarah to stay inside. We both knew that it wasn't safe. She didn't listen though. She was well aware of the dangers of the storm, but she couldn't resist. Sarah saw a dog lying in the street. Its leg had been injured by debris from the wind. She told me she'd be right back. She said she'd run outside, carry the dog in, and that would be that. Sarah had a big heart. She would rather risk her life than bear the thought of an animal in pain. And for that, she paid the ultimate price. The cloud had rolled in faster than either of us had anticipated. 1 second she was there clear as day, and the next, Sarah was swallowed up. I couldn't even see the glow of the street lamps anymore. Just a wall of impenetrable black. Moments later, the storm lifted. It lasted a matter of minutes, but in that short amount of time, it took my Sarah with it. No one saw her or the dog ever again. It's been months and I still can't get that image out of my head. She turned back to me just once before it took her. The look in her eyes, she was scared, so scared. I just hope that wherever she is now, she isn't suffering. I put the journal down and wiped a tear from my eye. I couldn't imagine the grief this man had felt. I paused for only a moment before I continued reading. Most of the entries were mundane, ramblings about politics, coworkers, or local gossip. I almost nodded off a few times trying to get through it. But the last entry, that caught my full attention. June 16th, 1978. It happened again. The storm, it came back. The sirens went off just after lunch and everybody took shelter. Well, almost everyone. Nelson Jeffries fell in the street and he couldn't get up. He was an old man, probably early 80s if I had to guess. He owned a shop up the street from Dad's house, a real nice guy. So he fell while everybody was taking shelter and I guess nobody noticed until it was too late. I felt bad for him, I really did. But it was like somebody had cast a spell on us. Nobody was bold enough to risk going out to help. Nelson begged. He cried. Said he would do anything if somebody would just bring him in. But we all knew. We knew that if any one of us stepped outside into the howling wind, the black cloud would come down on us too. Nelson was a dead man. Us townsfolk could only watch as one of our own was taken. It was hard, and after Sarah went not even 3 years ago, both times I felt so helpless. Even now, the guilt eats at me. Although there's nothing that any of us could have done. The cloud descended on him. It drowned out his wails. But this time, it wasn't as dark as before. Somebody forgot to turn the headlights off of their car before they hurried inside. And that's why I was able to see it. It was still obscured and difficult to make out in the pitch black, but I know what I saw. A humanoid shape walked up behind Nelson. It seemed like it came out of thin air. I watched as it scooped up his silhouette. It paused for a split second, and I felt true dread. I couldn't see its face, but I know that thing was staring at me. I could feel it. And then I blinked and it was gone. The cloud lifted, and when the darkness cleared, Nelson and the figure had vanished. I don't know what I saw that day, but I'm certain of one thing. These storms, it's causing them. I didn't know what to make of the diary. The man had lost a loved one to the storms. Maybe he was delusional or even worse. He could have made the whole thing up. Either way, I wasn't entirely convinced that there had been a person amid the storm. With this hobby, I've debunked more tall tales than I can count. I've been taught to search every avenue before I reach a solid conclusion. But even so, something in my gut told me that the account was real. Little did I know later that day that I would find out for certain. I glanced at my watch. My time was up. If Gary was punctual, my car should have been ready. I picked up the books and I made my way to the counter where Shayla stood. Her cat-like eyes followed me the whole way. Thanks, I said, placing the books on the counter. These were really helpful. Shayla took the books without a smile. I'm glad to be of service. I shot her an awkward grin, which she didn't return, and I walked away. Now lighten up, will ya? I muttered once I was out of earshot. I didn't understand what Josiah saw in that woman. Looks aside, Shayla was cold as ice. I returned to the auto shop to find Gary standing at the counter covered in sweat and grime. There you go, kid, all fixed up, he said, handing me my car keys. Thanks, I appreciate it. Nah, thank you, he said, flashing twin rows of yellow teeth. Pleasure doing business with ya. His grimy smile sent a shiver down my spine. My first course of action upon leaving the shop and noting that my car indeed had new tires was to walk to the square. Once I arrived, I realized something. Josiah never gave me a time to meet up with them. I hadn't thought to take down his number either. I sat down on a bench outside a boutique and cursed myself for being so careless. I had no other option than to sit there and wait. I was getting hungry, but it was clear that the town saw me as an outsider. I wasn't comfortable entering any of the local businesses alone. I stared up at the sky, wondering if this was it. If this was all that I was going to get out of the little town in West Virginia before calling it quits. I had taken down some good notes. I had a satisfying amount of information to update my blog with. But part of me felt like it wasn't enough. I wanted more. If I could just see one of the storms with my own eyes, that would make the whole trip worth it. Little did I know, I was about to get my wish. As I stared up at the clouds, I noticed a shift. The sky gradually became muted. The crickets stopped chirping and the birds fell silent. In a matter of seconds, the bright midday sun had been obscured by a wall of black. And then the sirens blared. High-pitched wails erupted throughout the air. I stood, prepared to take shelter in a nearby shop, but I didn't get the chance. Something heavy hit me in the back of the head and my vision faded out. I was woken by the shriek of the sirens overhead. I found myself sitting on the ground, hands tied behind my back, unable to move. I discovered that I was tied to a flagpole. A familiar figure stood over me, arms crossed in triumph. Josiah? He wore a devilish grin, the kind of grin that told me something was wrong. Shayla joined him at his side, and soon Gary did too. What is this? What's going on? I said, surveying each of their faces. To my horror, each of them broke into a smile. Oh, you, my friend, are about to see the storm firsthand. You wanted this, did you not? Josiah said as the wind howled all around him. Why are you doing this? You know that's not what I want. His smirk grew even wider. Let me give you a little history lesson, Paul. You see, this land is cursed. There's very little documentation, mainly only stories passed down. But as the legend goes, the English settlers who put down roots here didn't do it for free. A Native American tribe called the Mingo lived here before they did. These were their lands. Negotiations didn't go as the English had hoped, so they slaughtered the Mingo people. In his last moments, their chief put a curse on this place. Now, every year, the storms roll in, and Josiah broke eye contact and his expression fell. Shayla rubbed his arm. After a moment, he continued. A storm took my father, or more accurately, the curse did. We don't know what becomes of those who fall victim to it, but you're about to find out. We're like family here. Better you than us. I could feel the color drain from my face. You tricked me, but how? How did you know the storm would come? His grin returned. Oh, it seems that the curse has grown a soft spot for us over the years. It tends to take outsiders if it can help it. If not, that's when we have to give up one of our own. We really should be thanking you, Paul. Due to your sacrifice, none of us will have to die. The trio's unsettling smiles beamed down at me, sending a shiver running down my spine. The storm was getting worse. The wind was like razor blades against my flesh and the sky was nearly dark as night. Oh, we really must be going now, Joe. It's almost time, Shayla said. You heard the woman. Goodbye, Paul, and again, thank you. My heart dropped. So this was it. Wait, I just have one more question, I said, turning to Gary. He had been oddly quiet during the whole interaction. If you knew that I was gonna die, why'd you go through the trouble of fixing my car? Wouldn't it have been easier to leave me with a set of flats and take my money? And Gary's lips formed a thin line. I'm an honest man, kid. I do honest work. You paid me to do a job and so I did it. Simple as that. I didn't respond. I just nodded and watched as the three retreated into a nearby store and left me to my fate. My heart thudded in my chest as I watched the sky glow darker by the second. It wouldn't be long now. Just another minute or two and I would meet my maker. I closed my eyes and began to pray. I was never a religious man, but if there was a God, I hoped with everything in me that he would take pity on my soul. A sudden rustling jostled me from my reverie. My eyes snapped open and I craned my neck to see behind me. There was a figure crouched down, working at the ropes binding my wrists. "Who are you? What's going on?" Before the figure could answer, the ropes gave way and I could move again. To my shock, I turned to find the old man from the bar, the one who had warned me to leave. "Come on, we don't have much time." He didn't have to tell me twice. I followed behind him as he picked up into a run. We tore through the deserted streets like madmen. The old guy was spry for his age, and I found that I was having a hard time keeping pace with him. "You should have left when I told you to," the man shouted without looking back. I didn't respond. He was right, though. In that moment, I realized that he hadn't just been hostile toward me when I had first arrived. He was trying to save my life. As the wind had reached a crescendo and the sky became black as pitch, we reached a tiny house. The man opened the door for me and I threw myself inside. I expected to turn and find him standing beside me, panting and out of breath. Instead, I heard the sound of the doors shutting and the lock clicking into place. "What are you doing? You need to take shelter." The old man looked at me through the screen door. I could see tears welling in his eyes. "Stay inside until the storm clears, son. Don't try to stop me. I've lived a long life, a good one. You've got the world at your fingertips. Make the most of it, all right." The old man turned and began to walk away. "Wait!" I shouted above the roaring wind. He glanced back at me. "What's your name?" "Micah. My name is Micah." He turned his back to me as the black cloud descended around him. I watched, frozen, as Micah was enveloped by the roiling darkness. At that moment, I swore that I could see a second figure emerge. It took Micah's hand, and together they walked away, never to be seen again. Moments later, the cloud lifted and the sky cleared. Birds sang in the trees, and the motions of spring continued like the storm had never happened. I stood for a moment, staring at the place where Micah had been moments prior. I put a hand to my face. My cheeks were wet with tears that I hadn't realized I'd been crying. I raced outside and I glanced around frantically. Micah was gone. And people began to emerge from surrounding homes and businesses. It seemed as if a collective weight had been lifted from their shoulders, until their eyes landed on me. Men, women, and children all stopped smiling when they saw me. Their unwelcoming scowls returned. I felt as if I was on a stage in front of dozens of people. Among the crowd, Josiah stared. Pure confusion scrawled across his face. I didn't wait around for him to put the pieces together. I raced to my car and I peeled out of that little town like a bat out of hell. I drove the whole 8 hours home in silence. I never did write that article that I had gone there for. I gave up the hobby after that. I stuck my nose somewhere that it didn't belong, and I almost paid the ultimate price. If the experience has taught me anything, it's that some mysteries are better left unsolved.